Well. Good afternoon, friends. 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Wednesday, 30th of October, or so my production notes tell me. It is. I'm in the banks of the Bacala Laguna here, and I have in the studio with me to kick off the 40th Lazarus Symposium, a very dear friend who I've only known in the course really of the last year, and who I joined me on tour in the United Kingdom on 2 or 3 dates earlier this summer, and who's now in Bacala, Mexico, with me, advancing his breakthrough research, the good professor, Dr. Alex Ling. Alex, I'm going to have to ask you to slide over. Guys, we're going to stay on the same. Frame there. Can you see us okay? Very good. Yes. So what are you doing in Mexico?
Well, I've been collecting water samples to extract the blueprint of the water over the last 3 months. And my latest research has revealed that there is so much more information within those blueprints that I could have ever imagined. It's just absolutely mind-blowing.
So to underscore, Alex came here, I was in Southern Africa, and heard that Alex was in Mexico. I was like, Alex, you've got to go to Bacala Laguna. He was in Mexico City and doing his research, and decided to fly into Bacala just for a day, maybe 2 days, and hasn't left. Okay, over a month later, hasn't left for good reason. To those of you who listen to my wheezing, you'll know that I've been speaking since I first arrived here over 2 years ago about the hyperdimensional nature of the water here. And I know that to be so, having got into it a couple of years ago and realized that how life-changing it is. But of course, not understanding that much about the hard science behind it. Having said that, I mean, Masaru Emoto was gracious enough to be an advisor on Humanitad's board years ago. Professor Glenn Ryan and Lee Lawrenson of the San Diego Research Institute that actually taught Masaru Emoto. I'm friendly with Lee and with Professor Glenn Ryan, and have shared the stage. Veda Austin, I've done a number of shows with, and then of course meeting with Alex in the course of the last year and understanding the work that he's doing and how his research is really the interface between not just having fun with water and the memory of water. And I'm not belittling Masaru Emoto's work. I'm just saying that Alex's approach is hardcore. He is, and sorry if I'm speaking out of turn, his work is connected to a foundational understanding that water is the technology that changes reality. When we understand that water is the quantum medium that God gifts us in order to shift time, reality, space, and so on. That's the main piece. And so Alex's work is proving that out. This is not a segment on Alex's work. This is a countdown to a show that he and I are going to do on Tuesday. Yeah. We've decided to do a live broadcast wall to wall during the US shit show, the elections, that are going to be online and are going to be designed to blitzkrieg humanity and to enchant and to pull everyone's attention into the same old dialectic. Red, blue, black, white, good, bad, Satan, angel. Stop. There is a point at which we are required to stop giving our plasma, our attention, our God-given prana to these false icons and images playing out on the screen of life, as I keep putting it. Because so long as we put our Kundalini, our life force, into those images that are projected at us, we animate them. We make them manifest. And that then becomes the definition of false light reality. That's how the mindfuckery works. The draconian Babylonian priesthoods of age have always known that that's how you harness humanity, through false image, false idol and icon. So what we're doing, what Alex is going to be demonstrating to us in the show during the US election, is the new dreaming. How we remove our attention from the checkerboard of the kingdom of the devil, simply move our attention, pick up a glass, go to your swimming pool, go to your pond, go to your lake or the ocean front, go to your own water source, whatever it is, get that water, and he's going to show us a few tricks. So that's more or less where we're headed, but we're also going to go into the backstory of your research. We're going to show a lot of the images, the magic and the mystery, and you're going to also announce the repository of water coding from all around the world. Exactly. And that's a call to action to humanity.
Absolutely.
We'll speak on that in a moment.
Yes, we are trying to create, or we will create, a network of water guardians globally. So the idea behind it is not only to protect the waters in that way, but also to align again to the waters around the world as it used to be many thousands of years ago before they manipulated us into doing different. So it's very, very essential to raise the vibration of this planet together in humanity, with all humanity, and in connection with water. This is how we can change things, and I know it for sure.
And I want to say something else here, okay? A month ago, when I was in South Africa, Alex came on also to the Lazarus, to the last Lazarus Symposium, as some of you will remember. After that, he went on Coast to Coast, George Nouri's Coast to Coast show in America, okay? One of the biggest shows in the US. Halfway through that show, they went to a commercial break. Halfway through a live transmission, they went to a commercial break, and the screen went black, and Alex never heard back from the network. Never heard back from George Nouri. George, love and respect you, brother. What the fuck? You don't do that to guests. Your staff have been blanking Dr. Ling. What's going on? You're supposed to write back or pick up the phone and say, hey, transmission's gone down, or the Pentagon have pulled the plug on this broadcast, Mr. Ling, because what you're trying to teach us in this broadcast is too controversial. We must not allow human beings to imprint water with the new dreaming, because that's the way we end war, disease, and poverty, right? So something is going on there. But seriously, Coast to Coast Radio, you guys, and you're not getting back to either Dr. Alex Ling or his agent when the plug was pulled halfway through a live transmission. Okay, a bit of controversy there, but it is a bit weird.
It was very, very strange, and most of my followers raised really quite a lot of questions about it, and they all were in agreement that obviously I have hit a nerve somewhere. So it's the only explanation.
Right. Well, there you go. Okay, friends, so that's basically the announcement. Countdown from today, the 30th, to the 5th, which is Tuesday. Christy, producer of Lazarus, is going to be producing that. It's going to be a live show. We're going to drop in. I don't even know what time it is, Christy, the actual election broadcasts. It may be at some ungodly hour. In any event, it's going to be on the day. We're going to have fun. We'll bring some tricks out and invite as many of you who resonate to this call to action to join us with the new dreaming. And we're really going to unveil the tools, the toolbox of how we actually do this. And that's why Alex is here. That's why we're building him a laboratory here in the New Earth Sanctuary in Mexico, because this is the seminal work of how we interface with so-called reality. In any event, Alex, I'm going to invite you back onto the panel with Charlie Ziese and Shehnaz, Soni, and David Sereda a little bit later. But anything else you wish to say in closing?
No, only that this is going to change everything. How we connect with water is the answer to literally all our problems.
And here, just so you know, guys, here is some images of the water that Alex is forensically studying. These are all from where? These are from Bacala?
The previous one was, this one is the portal, showing the portal in Bacala, the Laguna of Bacala. Absolutely stunning image. And if you see just in the center, there's actually a ship flying right into the portal.
Yeah.
So the next one is, I think that's from Chacala area, from a Laguna there. And it's showing some underwater dwelling. And we have been told by the indigenous people that there is actually still there are remains of a village under the water. This again is actually the actual blueprint of Bacala. Absolutely stunning. You can see the blue area in the center, accompanied by this beautiful bird which is stretching out its wings underneath, carrying the energy. Yeah, it's mind blowing. This is water in motion. We have done some experiments where we are creating sounds to go hand in hand with the image. That is not quite ready yet, but that will be the next step.
Very good.
And that is from an ancient seabed, actually Linda Vista, which is on the edge of the zone of silence in Mexico, and revealing a structure, a pyramid structure underneath the sand. And again, the indigenous people ensured us that this is exactly what's underneath. The latest image is almost telling us what maybe is going to happen. It could be a picture from the past or future. This is showing a volcano. This image was taken in Tulum in the Laguna, and showing clearly a volcano which is active.
Was it a cenote or a laguna?
It was a cenote.
Okay.
And this one is again from Bacala. We placed another question asking, is this really a portal? And it's shown us even a bigger ship this time flying into the portal.
Very good. Okay, well, that's just a little teaser. Thanks, Alex, and we'll see you on the panel shortly. All right, friends, a little teaser. Let's move on swiftly. We're 11 minutes past the hour. We are marking today the launch of the New Earth Sovereignty Academy, NESA for short. And this is a transformative initiative designed to empower individuals to embrace your personal sovereignty. And in this age of unbearable calamity and collapse, the imperative is there. It's so obvious that each of us are required now to step in and step up to a higher expression of who and what we are and why we incarnated onto this earthly plane. We did not come into this realm. We did not project or beam the plasma of our limitless, infinite souls into this quadrant of a creation in order to become enslaved to the Pentagon or to the Vatican or to the crowns or to the governments, or should I say privately owned corporations masquerading as government. We didn't come for that. We came for far different, far higher purposes and missions. The thing is that the last great age of the Luciferian false light matrix, the Kali Yuga, did indenture all of us psycho-civilizationally and incarnationally into a grand sleep, a great sleep. And it's the awakening from that sleep that we are now being met with. And those of us who are either bold enough or indeed meek of heart enough, which is to say the same thing, because the meek amongst us are the boldest amongst us. I learned that a long time ago. But it is incumbent upon those who are the most bold and the most meek to awaken within the dream spell, to actualize, and in so doing, resurrect the soul of humanity, of this entire earth plane. So that's where we're at. And I'm putting a bit of a gloss on the subject because it's a desperately serious one. It's the difference between the living and the dead, whether we understand law or whether we continue to bow and scrape and acquiesce and pay coin to Caesar and hope that we can get through another week, another month, another year without being spotted by the lords of time and dragged into shackles and thrown into debtor's prison or bankruptcy or morbid depression. All of the afflictions of entropy in our age, the misery, the poverty, the destitution that the overwhelming majority of humanity suffer from. That's something which we are the custodian. That's a change. That is the great change which we are the custodians of. But we do it through alchemizing ourselves, do we not? And that's the point here. And that's the point of the New Earth Sovereignty Academy. So this is not And the preamble is because this is not about how to get out of paying taxes. That's part of it. That's a delightful part of it. It's not how to claim a allodial title and tell the government to go and fuck itself. Yes, it's part of it. That's a bauble. It's about a great deal more than that. It's about how we bring ourselves into the divine, into our own immeasurable spirit of our own divinity. That's what this academy is about. So be clear, if you just want to sign up to learn how not to pay taxes, honestly, Google, go and check it elsewhere. You'll find shoddy coursework, some of it good, some of it lousy, some of it bloody dangerous. Go try that. But this is for alchemy. This is for alchemizing your soul. This is for alchemizing your standing in life. This is for alchemizing your lives and the lives of your families. So friends, very, very excited to be announcing today the onset of the Sovereignty Academy, the New Earth Sovereignty Academy. Stand by. This is a brief promo before I bring on our maestro, Marsha Willitson.
Government is mandated to serve humanity, not to enslave it. Laws are purposed to ensure justice and remedy, not become the utility of slave masters to penalize and oppress humanity. Police and civil servants are sworn to protect us and ensure the smooth function of society, not to terrorize and bully the common folk. No part of the status quo serves the living so long as the apparatus of governance is weaponized against reason and against the pulse of humanity. It is time to turn the tide. Break free from the past and embrace the eternal. Your journey to sovereignty starts here. Introducing the New Earth Sovereignty Academy, born from a global awakening, guiding us beyond the old systems of control. Enter your highest realm, your divine birthright. Reclaim your sovereignty and align mind, body, and soul with a noble path. Crafted to empower those seeking true sovereignty, our coursework guides you through overcoming personal and external barriers. It leads you from self-discovery to profound spiritual alignment, enabling you to embrace your highest potential and activate your sovereign self. Unlock the power of true freedom. Join the New Earth Sovereignty Academy today. Become part of a vibrant community where connections deepen, spiritual growth thrives, and love radiates. Your journey to empowerment begins now.
Okay, friends, so there you have it. You can see the strip below, academy.newearthhorizon.com. You can go there and you can sign up to the coursework, which launches imminently. And this thought first came when I was on tour earlier this year. There were two things that happened. One, Alexandra, my tour producer in the US, and she's a student of law, and one of those kind of radical characters who despises all things fictitious, all governments and all the abrogations and derogations of government. But she does the work and she studies up diligently on this stuff. And so we got talking on tour about, oh God, wouldn't it be great to, and Marsha Willitson is the person I met early this year for the first time, not known her. I met her when I was in Nevada City. And I was so taken with her and fell so in love with all that she represents when she got on the stage. Before I did my lecture, she got on the stage for about an hour, and it absolutely blew me away. And I've been a student of sort of esoteric stuff in law for a long time, which is why I founded the International Tribunal. And I care about natural justice. I deeply, deeply care about it. But I also understand it's a very complex subject when you really get, or is it? Or is it a really complex subject? And this is where Marsha comes in, because she does kind of throw, this extraordinary filigreed, hand-woven kind of dragnet of love and beauty. She throws it over you and then pulls you in to a space of really being in the now and becoming very attentive to your own standing under the central sun. And you are required to see yourself, and you're required to address yourself, and then step over the threshold, and then become reborn into the living testament, the living gospel, which is what real natural law is all about. That's what Christ worship is all about. That's what religiosity is all about. That's the thing we're truly seeking. So without much ado, I'm going to bring on Marsha. Good to see you, Marsha. You'll need to unmute your microphone. Sorry, that would have been done when you were in the studio.
Hello, Sacha.
Well, good to see you. And I also want to quickly bring on Alexandra to say hi, and Dr. Maneli Sharafian, who is on our team. So we have a professor, we have an avid law student, and we have the greatest maestro in law that I know, Marshall Willardson, and we have me, the reckless one here. And we are the founding premise friends of the New Earth Sovereignty Academy. Marsha, why is it important?
Well, it is important because when we've been trained, we have a habit of thinking that has been engineered. There's actually a formula that we look at, we study, we develop, and we see how this formula has really evolved our habit of thinking. You're talking about how our thinking impacts the water and how it is that we change. So not only do I throw the book at you and we start reading very deeply into how this is all structured, but the most important part of the discourse is that we begin to examine ourselves in the face of what we're seeing. How are we observing ourselves? I call us the quantum observer in the process. How do we now see our thinking has been designed to bring the resonance and control? And when we do that, we go from coming from that sovereignty, we begin to break that mold of there's somebody out there doing it to us. We begin to take responsibility for altering our thinking and then changing what happens out in the dream.
Beautiful. And why is the concept of individual sovereignty really more important now than arguably any time in history?
Well, because we're waking up, we're coming out of the density of the nightmare, so to speak, and really we're at the tip of the iceberg. And when I look at, and I say in the Kali Yoga, and we got 1,000 years of peace, I try to return my gaze to what would it be like 1,000 years from now? What are we building? What is it that is actually emerging? And how am I that drop of water that resonates in the whole?
Okay, so let's look at what the New Earth Sovereignty Academy is going to be bringing forth. What are the key elements of the inaugural course, Wisdom's Calling, Blessings of Liberty?
The key elements are, like Sun Tzu says, know yourself, know your adversary, and there is no peril. When we see the way that it was developed, the actual formula that's been used, that is the formula that's developed our thinking and our acting, and we begin to see that may not be, we may not have designed that. We may not have consciously had those thoughts and the resonance that we're speaking and thinking. And when we see that, we have the opportunity to alter it. We have the opportunity to alter the trajectory of the formula, the process, that has been designed, that through which we've been designed to express what I call the war powers. The war powers overlay in our culture, and when we work and we take responsibility for altering that, the war powers has no power. The war powers, now we begin to bring the divinity. We alter the product by altering our energy, and the outcome is completely different.
So you see, what I love about this approach, your approach, and now our approach with the Academy is that it's also corresponding to vanguard science, quantum science, understanding, torsion values, scalar values, fractality, that the individual is a fractal of the whole, and the individual impacts the whole. So I can and must impact the whole field of reality by perfecting and alchemizing this being, this aspect, this fractal.
The whole, not just, we tend, because we've been so separated in our thinking from being the powerful beings that we are, from having the influence that we do, from bringing the live divinity to action. We've been trained that it's a spectator sport. Thousands of people sit in the stadium while a few people play the sport. And we see that in our TVs, in our production. A few people are out there, and we're watching and we're seeing and we're resonating with what they're saying. And we think it's over there, when in fact, we're creating, through our listening, the ability for people to resonate with our divinity.
Absolutely beautiful, beautiful. And, you and I had a conversation yesterday. We were in a meeting with a whole bunch of people. One of them was the Secretary General of an intergovernmental organization that has been founded 30 years ago, Professor Matthew. And that's an institution that was founded really through the white hat kind of military intelligence over 3 decades ago, in advance of where the world was heading. So that in the conversation with the professor, a point was raised, because we're looking at intergovernmental organizations, multilateral institutions, where the intersect is going to be with the New Earth nation, because we're establishing the New Earth micronation in Tennessee, and we're establishing, you've already been architecting the New Earth ecosystem as a diocese, as a ministry. And it's not a shoddy undertaking. This is a complex, convoluted undertaking with multiple trusts, irrevocable trusts, all nested within it, in order to protect all the different moving parts of an entire panoply of creation that our ecosystem is involved with. So we're incubating technologies, for instance. They have to be protected from those agencies and those entities that would seek to destroy them and prevent them from getting to market. So you're not going to get a free energy technology to market, because the status quo, the governments, the statutory requirements of the regulatory authorities will prohibit any real breakthrough energy technology getting to market, because that's going to come against the oil and gas hegemony, against the central globalist hegemony, against the central priest banker hegemony. So technology doesn't advance because of that. Medicine, health. I just saw today Bobby Kennedy, God love him. Let me see if I can find this. Marsha, you'll love this quote. I hope I saved it, which I normally do frantically. I normally grab balls. I didn't. But it was Bobby Kennedy. It was Bobby Kennedy basically declaring war on the FDA and the CDC and the AMA today, or yesterday, in a beautiful posting where he was essentially saying, we're coming for you, you sons of bitches. We are coming for you, but my language. We're coming for you. If you work in the FDA, this is what he said. If you work in the FDA, 2 things: pack your bags and hold on to your records, because we're coming for you. Wow. That's the first time I've ever seen a senior political figure and pundit. Certainly, if Trump comes in, which many are expecting, and he appoints Bobby Kennedy as his Tsar, it's over. Those regulatory authorities are over. That third-party intervention is over. So I'm illustrating a point here. We're building an entire universe, a new Earth nation. We're creating the IT infrastructure to make that creature functional so it can work all around the world. We've got land holdings that are being offered to us all around the world. So we're in a very serious position, Marsha, where we're looking to, and Dr. Manley is very involved. We've got a very, very big team now. But the point I'm trying to make is this. That conversation with Professor Matthew yesterday, Marsha, when he said there is no such thing as international law anymore. No one understands what international law is. There is no one teaching international law. How the hell did that come about without us being aware? When we presume that everything is taking place under the thrall of international law.
Well, when we begin the discourse of the blessings of liberty, we will see exactly how that came about. We'll see the formula, we'll see the overlay. And when we look at, and we're talking about over there, and yes, God bless Robert Kennedy, and God bless all the cleanup that is being done, because and the cleanup that we do in the blessings of liberty is when we say, oh, there's a technology over there. An immediate thought, well, that'll never happen, or that is the subtle alchemy. That is the subtle alchemy that comes from our direction, and we see it played out in those forms of the third dimension that begin to limit the access to the technology, to the divinity, to the things that we know it, and we will find out even in a more deep understanding of who we are to be this transition.
Right. And how long do you think it's likely to take the average punter off the street, interested in the subject of sovereignty and reclamation of the straw man, all of that? How long do you think it's really likely to take someone who's green around the gills to understand this kind of philosopher's stone that essentially we're cooking up? Is this something that someone can pick up in a couple of weeks, or is it something that requires the gestation of time?
Well, I've organized it over a 10-week discussion, the 10-week discourses, because I take pieces of it and we chew on it. In the beginning, the person off the street many times doesn't realize that they've been so manipulated. And when they begin to really see the manipulation, they go through their own cleansing psychologically, physically. They go through whatever they go through till we get to that core point and begin to realize that we bring the substance to the transition. The form of what we're looking at, that oppressive form, we have to look at as if, just like in any cleansing, we still don't have to examine the fecal matter of the cleanse. Once we get to the cleanse, we can transform to something we couldn't see before the cleanse.
So if you don't mind,
I say 10 weeks. I've
Okay.
set it out for 10 weeks. And in today's climate, 2 years ago, when I started this at 10 weeks and people were still grappling with it, the momentum of our being who we are has altered in the last 2 years. It could be 5 weeks. We could cut this down faster because people are more ready to take the responsibility and be the change.
That's beautiful. And isn't that precisely why we ought to welcome the deconstruction of reality, even though it hurts, as we see the high street collapsing, economies collapsing, and all the kind of normative edifices of our reality, they're deconstructing and imploding. And there's a sense of terror, and we're under siege, and we're variously neurotic and psychotic. But actually, all of that is a very healthy, in a sense, a detox. Symptoms of detoxifying from the false light age, right?
Exactly. We go through our spiritual Herkheimer's. We have to upheaval here to get to that point of neutrality and that peace that we really carry and that has been overshadowed.
So you say 10 weeks could really be the peace that I would agree with that. But it's taken you a hell of a lot more than even 10 years to alchemize these processes so that you can instruct, and we through the academy can give the best in class instruction in the world. What, for instance, yourself, if you don't mind speaking about you can comport yourself in a strange way. When you drive around, do you drive around with driver's licenses and things like that on your person?
Well, I have one now, just out of being forced to be arrested or have one, and I'm going to cancel it again. The truth is, I have that has been recognized until recently, and understand it's wise to know that there's a war against us out there and to have those tools to go for free passage in occupied territory. And for years I have, through the affidavit that we will begin to work with in the Blessings of Liberty, have presented through my affidavit of public ministry my neutrality, and have been protected by war powers until recently. There is an active war against people trying to break the mold. So I do right now. That doesn't mean I always will. And that doesn't mean when I meet somebody whose job is to express war powers, how I present myself in the moment. I may present the documents they're willing to see. It's a relationship. It's a dance. It's not a form. You've got to be one way or another.
Yeah.
Who am I in the matter at the time? I'm either representing myself through war powers perspective, or I'm bringing my divinity forward for the protection of war powers.
Beautiful. When you say war powers, just define the war powers, if you will.
Since Abraham Lincoln and well before that, while we're sitting in countries that have been taken by conquest, that have been taken by claims and taken by war powers, people have been killed and the land has been stolen. Those war powers and still exist. The first executive order was issued as the Lieber Code by Abraham Lincoln, and that was an exercise of war powers because the civil government had broken down. There was no civil authority because the Congress didn't come back. It was literally broken. So the war powers were necessary to preserve the peace of the nation, to continue like they have now, right now, the continuity of government. There is no civil authority until we as the sovereigns come in and rebuild what we're talking about. They have a duty to protect and to maintain and to exercise martial law, military rule, war powers, and we have it very active today. They can only relinquish that when we truly come forward with a viable opportunity, with something that actually is something that will work to bring and preserve the peace and to bring our cultural perspective back in with a structure for management. And then the war powers can diminish. But until we know who we are in that process, there's no viable alternative.
Isn't there a simpler way of us simply being able to lawfully and possibly even legally just disentangle ourselves from the draconian complex, cut a given cord, and then leave Sodom and Gomorrah altogether, wholesale, return to the soil? Is there not a premise wherein and whereby any good human can simply enact, embody, and manifest that outcome without too much complexity?
When we cut the cord to the way that our thinking has been designed, yes, that there is that we cut the habit of our thinking that has been designed, that it has actually thinking us. We're not having the original thoughts. We're not presenting our divinity. We're socialized, indoctrinated to our own thinking. And so that's what the Blessings of Liberty is about. How do we observe that? How do we see, is that me thinking? Where did that thought come? How do I know for sure? What is that thought? Would I make that thought up in my divinity if the thought that whatever I'm thinking, like the technology, oh, that'll never happen. Oh, it's out there. It's not. So when we begin to come from the responsibility in here and examine what we're saying, and examine what we're thinking and coming into the universe, we see in the water quality how that thinking impacts the water. We're all water. Where the fluidity of our thinking really creates the manifestation of the structure, the substance. We're the substance of the form that gets created.
Oh, that's so beautifully put, Marsha. That's wonderful. So again, just to underscore, we began an undertaking this year as we start to see, certainly this is my rationale for the Tennessee project, which we're calling the Golden Ticket, because it's a movement that we've begun, which is going rather well. And we are inviting people from America principally, but not entirely, around the world as well, to buy into what we're doing and to lean into it and participate in it. So it was, we've got multiple land holdings in Tennessee that we're looking at. We're signing off on that imminently to make a determination about which land holding we're actually going to acquire. Our land scouts are out there on the ground. We're still very excited about Tennessee. And I'll tell you another curious thing. When that hurricane hit and all that flooding happened a few weeks ago, I was in Southern Africa, and a fair few comments came on social media going, I bet Sacha Stone's changed his mind about Tennessee now. Not a bit of it. Actually, it made me all the more resolute that we've chosen the right place. And then we had a meeting, a crisis meeting with our team, and our land scouts came on and said, well, actually, all the land holdings that we've been designating are on dry land and on high land. And so we'd already taken that position. But the Golden Ticket in Tennessee is what also inspired us to launch the Academy quickly, because if we're going to be inviting people in the Americas initially and then around the world to start congregating, coming together into a fellowship, defining that fellowship, and then pegging that fellowship to a given piece of soil, and then claiming the title to that soil away from the war powers, bleaching that from the liens and the encumbrances of ancient treaties and compacts, and then reconfiguring relationship with that soil, we figured that we ought to actually launch an academy that can really walk people through that process. And that was the genesis, really, of this New Earth Academy. Dr. Mannerly, having been a professor even up until recently, I think the last university you were a professor at was San Francisco. You're now full-time in the saddle, working with the Tennessee Golden Ticket project, our micronation. You're full-time with us now. You've been seeing the growth patterns. You've been a part of it over the last few weeks. How do you feel about this academy? Being an academic, how do you feel about the New Earth Sovereignty Academy, and what do you have to illustrate?
Thank you, Sacha. Hi, everyone. My name is Maneli, and I was actually assistant professor at University of San Francisco, and I left after 7 years because I saw how corrupted the academia was, and I kind of feel very blessed to be able to work with you and Marsha and Alliance Sovereignty Academy. I think it's the most exciting, one of your most exciting initiatives. And we are going to start with Marsha's course, but we will bring other teachers, and also Marsha may teach even other courses in the future.
Beautiful. And Ali, speak to this, if you will. You'll need to unmute your microphone. But just, you know, as I said, when we were on tour earlier this year, we really forged this idea of kicking this academy out. Of course, the New Earth University has for a long time done coursework with UCC and what have you. And this academy is very much will be tethered to the New Earth University. But can you just describe a little bit about the coursework? How are the courses structured online?
I can share my screen. Do you want me to share my screen?
Yeah, sure. Ali, do you have anything to say by way of introduction?
Well, hello, everyone. I'm thrilled to introduce our new online academy platform.
Okay. Share your screen here, Maneli, and then Ali and you can both just interject and speak over it.
So we've designed it to be very...
Christy, you're going to have to help me here. Can we, because I can't see it. There we go. Thank you. Take control.
Wonderful. So the path to sovereignty begins here. It's a very, we've made the platform very dynamic and collaborative and easily navigatable. So this is what you guys can see right now, like before you purchase anything. Once you do become a member and you choose a course or discourse to join, there will be a group for that discourse. You'll automatically be put into this group, and there will be a chat room where everyone can collaborate and message each other, and the mentor, Marsha, or a mentor of another course, whoever the mentor is, will be able to write to you there and pin things for you to see them and upload documents. They'll each have their own libraries of things that they would like you to be reading. And it's all just very collaborative, and that's what I feel is very important. I've taken different courses in different classes, and until I became a member of an academy, that made everything so much easier. And it was like, because we're unlearning so much and relearning everything. So it's like, and nobody around me, well, from my experience, nobody around me was learning these esoteric law forms. So it was like, it was so beautiful to have a community, have access to a community. And so that's why I helped direct the building out of this incredible platform to make it just so perfect and effortless and really amazing.
So the idea is that people come to New Earth, academy.newearth.com. Is that the current URL?
Yes, academy.newearthhorizon.com.
Got it. And then they'll come to the pop-up and they can sign up through that pop-up page. Is that correct?
Yes. Manali, can you refresh so that we can see the pop-up?
Yeah. It's just kind of staying on that one page from what I can see.
When you go to the website, there will be a pop-up, and it will ask you if you would like to leave your email for future interest. And then you'll be the first ones to know when you're available to sign up for this first live discourse.
Very good. So the first coursework is kicking off when? Do we have a definitive date?
By November 21st.
Okay. The November 21st is at this stage dateline 0. Is that correct? Manali, are you with us, or have you gone or fallen off? Are you with us?
Sorry, no, I was trying to refresh the page. So.
And on the homepage, if you scroll down, there'll be upcoming events, and you'll see the first discourse will be on November 21st. And it lists out the first 3. If you're unable to catch the live discourse, you will be able to replay it on your own time, and you can always replay it as many times as you would like.
Very good.
And if I may say, make the live discourse if you can.
Yeah.
Your energy coming in alters the outcome. Everybody in the quantum field, when we come in and with our own alchemy, there's no way I can predict what the outcome of the discourse is going to be, because your energy alters the experience and the product that is present. So that's why I make it a live discourse. It's not just a recorded version. The live discourse is now. The spiritual messages that come to us and through us are real time, and we have an opportunity to be that change as the discourse evolves. Another thing is that while the Blessings of Liberty is the first course that's designed, and I call it in the area of self-discovery, I'm looking at now, once we've discovered ourselves, how do we express that as self-mastery? Where do we look at for mastering that out into the world? And how do we become competent as those divine beings in the face of what the world has brought for us to cleanse out there?
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Sacha, can I add something? Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I want to say that this is honestly, I think, once in a lifetime opportunity, because Marsha is very busy and she's going to teach this course live for 10 weeks. We are going to have Q&A at the end of each session. So for the future, we may do the recording of the course and add Q&As, but this is your opportunity to really be with Marsha for 10 weeks. And if you are a golden ticket member, it's included in your membership. If you are thinking to buy a golden ticket, this is the time to do that. And we also provided 20% discount for Lazarus initiative members. So if you are thinking to join Lazarus, this is a great time because you get 20% discount to join Academy.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Manelli, very much indeed. Okay, just to underscore, Marsh, and I know I'm kind of being repetitive, but I just want to get this into my audience's mindset. Who is the ideal participant for the New Earth Sovereignty Academy's programs, and why is it essential for them to consider joining now, at the beginning, at the onset of the coursework?
Well, somebody who's the person who's ready to come forward and be part of the new earth, to be part of the new thinking. You know, we sit back in our homes and think, well, if only it were this way. Bring that to the discourse, bring that to the table, bring your divinity, because just like the bacalar and the laguna, each one of those water molecules contribute to the beauty of the water.
Beautiful. Love it. Well, I think that's pretty much it. Dr. Manelli, thank you very much indeed. Ali, thanks. And Marsha, thank you. We obviously work every day as a team with our greater team. So I'll be seeing you later today in various Zoom calls and conference calls over the coming day or two. But thank you for joining me on Lazarus today. I'm very, very grateful for the time you guys have taken. Thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. We are so blessed.
Yes, thank you, everybody. Ciao.
Very good, friends. Okay, as we sign off and introduce the next panel, I just wanted to, oh, balls, Christy, you took down would you mind just sharing it again? I just want to play the Academy media piece again. I was planning to close with it, give myself a chance to run to the ladies' room.
Government is mandated to serve humanity, not to enslave it. Laws are purposed to ensure justice and remedy, not become the utility of slave masters to penalize and oppress humanity. Police and civil servants are sworn to protect us and ensure the smooth function of society, not to terrorize and bully the common folk. No part of the status quo serves the living so long as the apparatus of governance is weaponized against reason and against the pulse of humanity. It is time to turn the tide. Break free from the past and embrace the eternal. Your journey to sovereignty starts here. Introducing the New Earth Sovereignty Academy, born from a global awakening, guiding us beyond the old systems of control. Enter your highest realm, your divine birthright. Reclaim your sovereignty and align mind, body, and soul with a noble path. Crafted to empower those seeking true sovereignty, our coursework guides you through overcoming personal and external barriers. It leads you from self-discovery to profound spiritual alignment, enabling you to embrace your highest potential and activate your sovereign self. Unlock the power of true freedom. Join the New Earth Sovereignty Academy today. Become part of a vibrant community where connections deepen, spiritual growth thrives, and love radiates. Your journey to empowerment begins now.
Terrific. You can remove that piece of media. Thank you, Christy, very much indeed. Very, very happy, friends, to be launching that New Earth Sovereignty Academy in the coming days. And happier still today to be introducing the panel for this month's symposium. I have to say, this is the 40th symposium, Lazarus Symposium. Each one of them, I think, runs between 6 or 7 hours long. So you can do the math. There's many, many hundreds of hours of broadcasting. And as I was reflecting on it yesterday in something that I was writing in social media, I'm just so blessed to have had the opportunity through the Lazarus Initiative over the last 3 years to have met with so many of the world's leading scientists and thought leaders and just progressivists, people who are really bending the envelope, so to speak. Because without them, Christ knows, we would have been hauled into the devil's vortex. I'm just so honored to bring on today some of our favorites Jimmy Blanchette, as you remember, who made his first appearance over 2 years ago, with over 25 years of expertise in quality operation research and engineering. Jimmy Blanchette stands out as a distinguished scientist and executive leader. His innovative approach, which is known as the First Contact Protocol, has facilitated groundbreaking interaction with universal intelligences, leading to pivotal insight into general relativity. And yes, friends, we're talking about aliens. We're talking about ETs, hyperdimensional, subdimensional, intradimensional, superdimensional intelligences, and where they intersect with our field of reality. So we're talking about a whole new physics and the connections to ancient sacred sites worldwide. The work that this man has done is so extraordinary, pioneering. Discover more about his work on his YouTube page, and Christy will make sure that all the links are in our broadcasting page. Also, Charlie Ziese, renowned for his knowledge in sacred geometry. And Charlie, of course, dives into the mathematical complexities inherent in ancient structures, and his exploration of the tetrahedron and the golden ratio sheds light on the advanced cosmic and energy harmonics possessed by ancient, and the comprehension thereof possessed by ancient architects. And learn more about Charlie's work at stargatepyramids.com, or chase the links below. My beloved friend David Sereda, the physicist, filmmaker, frequency guru as we refer to him, and expert in harmonics and subtle planes of reality. David Sereda's unique merging of ancient wisdom and quantum physics has amassed a huge following around the world of people who are also leaning into the new earth. And his work offers groundbreaking healing techniques and fresh insight into the universe's interconnected nature. Here we're doing a segment later today. The last segment of today is a standalone with David, which also speaks about the film he's just released, and it's tracing the beloved life after death. And it's really following the journey of the extraordinary communication that has taken place between David and his late wife, Crystal Sereda, who died a couple of years ago, and has been communicating with David subsequently in a way that can now be forensically evidenced. And that's what that disclosure is later today. Fascinating stuff. And of course, last but absolutely not least, and somebody whom I miss tremendously, is Shehnaz Soni, our resident rocket scientist, as we call her, and the author of The Quantum Being. She's a spiritual alchemist, a highly ranked academic, and a quantum coach. And she works to inspire humanity to step into their light and command their destiny. Discover more about Shehnaz's own journey and her insights into consciousness and transformation at her personal website, which is www.shehnazsoni.com. Watch the spelling there. It's not as obvious as you might think. Let me bring Shehnaz on first. Delighted to see you again.
Hi, Sacha. It's been a long time.
Way too long. We're very happy.
I know. I still remember us being in Islam Ujrays, and we are even going into that, whatever that vehicle was. It was like such a good time, right? And you were saying we have a precious cargo. Remember that?
Yes, I do. How true. David, good to see you too, brother. Yay. Charlie Ziese, where are you, sir? Charlie's with us. Yay. Good to see you, Charlie. There's a mic test here. You might have to unmute yourself. Same with you, David.
Yeah, I just unmuted. Yeah, hi.
Okay.
Hi, David. Hi, Charlie.
And Jimmy Blanchette.
Hello, Sacha. Hi, everyone. Great to be on your show again, Sacha. Actually, I retrieved a few days ago an old footage of a broadcast that I had made back in 2021 to launch the Lazarus initiative, broadcast throughout the solar system. So I send it to you, to assistant, if you're interested.
Oh, I'd love to see that. Christy, if you've got that, let's get that up. Let me just, I'm sorry, guys, I don't know what I'm doing there. Let me just quickly read the introduction here. We're discussing today, friends, how the ancient wisdom of nature's most profound geometric principle is set to revolutionize our understanding of energy and the cosmos. Well, I don't know that it's set to revolutionize. It has already revolutionized our understanding of energy in the cosmos. God knows, 100 years ago, one Nikola Tesla was proving it out. But the golden ratio, a universal code found in everything from spirals in galaxies to the growth patterns of plants, holds the key to unlocking sustainable and transformative energy solutions. Energy being, of course, the ground of all, the ground of everything. Our distinguished panelists here today are bringing their wealth of expertise from fields spanning physics, astrophysics, geometry, astrology, energy, consciousness, and so on. Each of them offering a unique insight into how this cosmic principle of the golden ratio, or the golden mean, can shape the future of technology, innovation, and human potential. And we'll explore the intersection of science and spirituality and discover how the golden ratio could be the bridge to a new era of understanding and advancement. David, I'm going to ask you to come in first. How does the golden ratio, when we're speaking about energy innovation, so-called free energy solutions, how does the golden ratio influence the development of innovative energy technologies, especially in the pursuit of free energy, and what potential does it hold for revolutionizing what we understand as energy today?
Well, the first thing we understand as energy is the human being and the human brain. And I really kind of got this insight recently. In quantum physics, you can't separate the particle from the wave. They're one. So that means you can't separate your brain waves and your heart waves from you. Because the moment I terminate one of your brain waves, you'll die. So that means you are the wave as much as you are the particle. So this is the particle emitting the waves. Now, if we measure the human skull, this was done at a major university, actually. I'm trying to remember the name of the university. So you measure from here to the soft spot on the head, and then to the back of the skull. The ratio in this university study was done on mammalia, on monkeys, on dolphins, and humans. And the ratio is between 1 and 1.6 and 1.57, 1 to 1.57. And what's interesting about that is the golden ratio, just like pi, is not a fixed ratio. It's a continuously expanding based on Fibonacci's numbers, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, etc. The ratio of the first number into the second number slowly progresses towards 1 to 1.618, which is what we call the golden ratio today. But with the decimal series, that ratio never really is finite. So when the study was done from here to here, the energy of the human being was closer to the golden ratio, and some humans exact and some humans not, than all the other mammalia species on the planet that were studied. And that means, as an energy system, as above, so below, we are probably getting this imprint from cosmos. In fact, if you look at the crown of a baby's hairline, you'll see this beautiful spiral up in here, which is your Fibonacci golden ratio spiral. So that means that energy in the cosmos flows through this golden ratio. And if you're in tune with that ratio in your free energy system, or you're out of tune with that ratio in your free energy system, you will see that there will be energy losses and chaos as you get further away and closer to that ratio. So when you get closer to that ratio, and then you're going to see more harmony and more energy. And when you get far away from it, you're going to see less. So that's just primary. That's primary.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I'm hearing cluttering and clicking going on somewhere. Christy, any idea where that's coming from?
It's coming from my daughter over here. I just have to ask her.
Oh, okay. It's sorry. I also want to introduce Alex Ling, Professor Alex Ling, who's in the studio here with me in Mexico. And Lazarus devotees know exactly who this extraordinary academic is, and the pioneering work that he's doing in water. Shehnaz, David, Charlie, Jimmy, are you variously familiar with Dr. Ling?
Yes.
Yes. Hi there.
Hi.
Hello.
Very good. Well, I figured, as I have a highly accomplished academic in the house with me. I thought, well, I'm not going to let him out of my sight for this panel. So he's listening in on it and might well wade in. I think you'll have to just hit me with this Aboriginal if you need my attention, if you want to say something. Okay? All right, very good, very good. So, Charlie, question to you. In light of Victor Schauberger's applications, how might the principles of the golden ratio be harnessed to achieve breakthroughs in sustainable energy solutions? Sorry, Charlie, you'll have to unmute. I'm so sorry. There you go. You're unmuted.
Okay. I've got a lot of information on this. So I've done a lot of my research recently has focused on free energy. You remember that we were talking about this last year with Nick Alvear and the Tartarian Empire. We found all of these ancient buildings with Antiquitech on them, and they had this ratio, this golden ratio scaling that I'm going to talk about today. So, what I decided was we really needed to see if we could find further evidence of this, because that geometry is what creates ionization fields. The Russian pyramid research has shown that, as well as other research that Dr. Sam Osmanagich and Michael Tellinger did on a site called the Great Zimbabwe in South Africa. Both create these enormous ionization fields. And as a result, the only thing that they have in common is geometry. So this is going to take a little while, but I want to show people I have done an extremely detailed analysis of this in fluid dynamics. And what we're going to find is this geometric angle is the angle that optimizes nose cones and the tails of aircraft and missiles and rockets and everything else that we can see. So what we're going to do now is go through some of these examples, and hopefully this will make sense for everyone. Now, Christy, how do I navigate? Do I do this off of I guess so. See if this changes. Can you see the introduction slide now?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is going to take about 20-25 minutes, but I'm going to try to keep it as fast as possible. Now, my previous research into golden ratio scaling, and that's what I'm now calling this 76-345 angle and 27-309. But we found it in nature and all sorts of architecture and steeples and monoliths and so forth, and it's even in our DNA. So we've seen that before, but as I mentioned, we talked about this with Nick last year, that virtually all of these ancient buildings that have this geometry contain Antiquitech. That's what the researchers describe as mercury balls, fractal antennas, capacitors, etc. And that's indicating that in a previous time, golden ratio scaling may have been used to increase the natural ionization fields that that are necessary to do ion energy harvesting for free energy. And in addition, this research has documented the extensive ionization fields produced by the Russian pyramids and the Great Zimbabwe. Again, Tellinger and Osmanagich measured the ionization field there at Great Zimbabwe, highest they had ever measured. The Russian pyramids, they calculated that if you were to try to recreate the ionization field that was created by this pyramid, which can be harvested for free energy, that it would take all of the electric generating capacity in the entire country of Russia. So we know we're on to something. I've also found it in free energy technologies at John Keeley, Tesla, Schauberger. We're going to talk about him a little bit more today. The Russian pyramids, Zimbabwe, there's a palace in Cambodia that's a currently existing free energy device, and lots of other research that shows that this geometry is connected to free energy. So I wanted to go back and go into golden ratio scaling and see if I could find it in fluid dynamics. And sure enough, I found it. And the summary of results are that this golden ratio scaling, just like last year with the Gothic cathedrals, I have measured every commercial and private aircraft, every helicopter, every bullet train, missile, rocket. It is everywhere, and we're going to see that. So additionally, what I think is significant for the free energy side, this very same golden ratio scaling geometry shows up in jet, rocket, and ramjet and scramjet engine nozzles. as the geometry that maximizes thrust in these, proving or corroborating that this is the optimal angle for implosion physics. So just to review real quickly, golden ratio scaling, how do we get there? I found it in the Russian pyramids, but the way you derive it, reverse engineer it, you start with a circle with a diameter of 1, put another circle on top, divide that 1 by 1.618, and you get 0.618 or phi. Then you divide that by the golden ratio, get 382 and so forth. You're going to, when you do all that and you measure the geometry, the slant angle at the bottom is 76,345 and the apex angle is 27,309. We've seen this before as well, but there are clear relationships here in the geometries of the Russian and the Giza pyramids. The heights of them, the slant heights, they all are phi based and they all have phi relationships. But the key thing is that the slant angle at the bottom of the Russian pyramid is exactly equal to that of the Giza pyramid. So this is connected into ancient architecture and ancient history and so forth. Now we're going to look at three ratios today, 3 angles. One is the 76,345. That's the way you measure it from the bottom. You can also use 27,309. That's what we're going to see most of the time today. But we can also see a 13,654 angle, which is exactly half of 27,309. Now, why is that important? For 2 reasons. We're going to see this in the aerodynamics of supersonic and hypersonic vehicles quite a bit. So that's important. But this shell that we see here with the 13,654 angle is at the exact shell that Victor Schauberger used to develop his own knowledge and understanding of golden ratio scaling, and he used that in his free energy devices as well. Now, the reason you want to do that in these supersonic and hypersonic vehicles is because you have jet engines that are called ramjet and scramjet engines that are located underneath the vehicle, and you don't want to disturb the airflow that's going into those intakes. All right, now we're getting into fluid dynamics. This is the theoretical model of a structure or a body that has the minimum amount of wave drag and supersonic flow. It was developed by Haack in 1941. He was a Nazi scientist, and then later independently by William Sears in 1947. It's a symmetrical object, but the key thing to see is that that 27,309 degree angle shows up in the nose cone, and it would be in the rear end of this body as well. So now I'm going to show where this shows up in fluid dynamics. First, we'll start in nature. All of the fastest birds have this in the front and the rear of their anatomy. And sure enough, what do you find in every commercial airplane? The same geometry in the front and the rear of the aircraft as well. In fish, in water-bound creatures, the trout was what Victor Schauberger used as a demonstration of golden ratio scaling for him. You can see the golden ratio scaling showing up in the front and the rear and the fins of the trout, and you'll also see it in that front view. And what's interesting is that very angle shows up in the front view of many, many submarines, so it's obviously important as well in that dimension as well. Here's a mako shark, almost a perfect match for the Sears Haack body that we found earlier, and again, having that golden ratio scaling geometry. We've seen these before. I showed these last time, but what I didn't know is how old these actually were. There are actually relics of golden ratio scaling arrowheads that have been found in South Africa that are 61,000 years old. So forget the idea that all of this stuff came to us in the last few years. We've known about this geometry. It's estimated that these go as far as 72,000 years old. And they all have golden ratio scaling in them. Boomerang is another example. This was used in Australia. Native Americans used it, residents in South India. This is nothing more than a sophisticated airfoil that has golden ratio scaling in its airfoil. And we can see that here in the 13.654 in the diagram. So we've known about this for thousands of years. Here's a cave drawing from Japan from about 5000 BCE. Again, seeing the relationship to the Sears-Hawk body. Now, getting into more contemporary things, I wanted to just kind of take off at the 17th century. Here's a Lithuanian rocketry pioneer who developed this rocketry design on the left. And on the right is the avant-garde hypersonic glide vehicle, which is the fastest vehicle on the planet. And they both have the same geometry, nothing new under the sun. Victor Schauberger, we talked about him and his vortex generator last year, his free energy device. But what we didn't talk about, because they didn't know it, was that Schauberger had used this seashell that we found, that I showed earlier, as the basis for designing a lot of his propellers and other designs. And it clearly demonstrates that Schauberger knew about golden ratio scaling as well. Now we're starting into modern aerodynamics. This is the V2 rocket designed by Werner von Braun and his team in Nazi Germany. You see golden ratio scaling in the nose cone over in the diagram, as well as in the stabilizing fins on the side. The Russians carbon copied the V2 rocket and came up with their own version, the R1, which continues to use that geometry as well. So we know from here on out, Werner von Braun's team came to the US, and the other German scientists went to Russia. Both teams apparently knew about this geometry and used it for many, many years to come in their aeronautics and hydrodynamics applications. Here's an example. I have all of these documented as well. Submarines all have this geometry in the rear. Most have it in the front. This is an Ohio class ballistic missile submarine that has golden ratio scaling in the front, both from the side and the top view. And here we see it in the back as well. Again, every submarine has this. Here's a cruiser, but I can tell you that every destroyer, I've measured them, every battleship, every corvette, any military craft other than aircraft carriers, because they're asymmetric, but you're going to find this geometry there as well. Every torpedo has this in the back. So this is just, I mean, it's mind-blowing to think that the geometry world doesn't know about this. But anyway, here's a racing boat with this geometry in the nose. We'll get into some land vehicles here. We see this scaling on the Porsche 911 concept vehicle. I've got every high-end sports car, and they all have this geometry because it helps to stabilize the car and minimize drag. Indy racers from the front, from the side view, they all have it. Dragsters use this geometry. Every bullet train has this geometry. Every bullet has this geometry. And what's important about this bullet, this is the 8mm Mauser bullet. This was actually the bullet that was used as the basis for determining the aerodynamics of the V2 rocket, which of course was then used as the basis for all subsequent aerodynamics in the latter half of the 20th century. All artillery shells have this geometry. Lighter than air vehicles all have it as well. We can see again the relationships with the Japanese cave drawing as well as the Sears-Hawk body. Helicopters have this as well. Every one of them has it in the nose cone and the tail. Some don't because perhaps they don't go that fast, that aerodynamics is that important. But when you see it, you're going to see it in helicopters as well. Every private commercial jet aircraft built on the planet from World War II on has golden ratio scaling in the front and the rear, and you can see how they are designed to conform to the Smith-Hawk body. Commercial aircraft are exactly the same way. We've got the Boeing 37 as an example, but you can see it in the front and the rear. It's harder to see from the side view because of the nose cone. If you go back there, that kind of distorts it a bit. But when you look at the top view, you can see the golden ratio scaling showing up in the front and the rear as well. Again, every SST has the 13654 in the front and the rear. talk quickly about airfoils. We saw that example with the boomerang earlier. When you look at airfoils on jets, they're variable, so you can't measure it very well. But prop planes have fixed propeller or fixed airfoils, and you can find the 27309 up front and the 13654 in the back. Here's another example: helicopter blade airfoils, 27309 in the front, 13654 in the back. Now, before we go into all the really fast and experimental vehicles, I want to talk about rocket engine nozzles, because this is an amazing thing. It was to me. I'm not a mechanical engineer, so I didn't know about hypersonic aerodynamics. But we're all used to playing with the water hose when we're kids, and this is an example of Bernoulli's principle, which says that basically, with a liquid like this, if you lower the amount of space for it to flow out of, you're going to develop more pressure and it's going to go further. So you develop thrust that way. Well, the funny thing is that doesn't hold in the world of aerodynamics, and specifically it doesn't hold up in hypersonic aerodynamics. So what do I mean by that? Let's look at this example. I've got three aircraft engine cutaways here. The first one is a traditional jet engine. Then we have a ramjet and scramjet. These are both jet propulsion systems for above Mach 1. But what you need to look at here, if you look in the yellow section, the turbojet has a nozzle that is converging, meaning it's getting smaller, whereas in the ramjet and scramjet, it is diverging. Now, what's so fascinating is that when you have subsonic flight, golden ratio scaling shows up in the converging nozzles, just as it does show up in the diverging nozzles of supersonic speeds. So here's an old fixed subsonic nozzle from a early jet with a golden ratio scaling. Here's another example of it. But now when we get into rockets, you see they're going faster than the speed of sound. So the nozzle is no longer convergent, it's divergent, but we still find the exact same geometry that produces the maximization of thrust. So this is from Robert Pelterie, a French 20th century pioneer in rocketry. Here is the V2 rocket nozzle. And I showed it on the left here, but what I really love are these very specific blueprints where I can home right in and show the precision. This is so perfect. I can't believe that they didn't know that what this geometry actually was. That continued on in Russia. Early rocket nozzle designs had this fixed nozzle with the golden ratio scaling. And we see two examples there. Now here's some from the West. These are Bell nozzle design. This is a more recent design, which helps to preserve or conserve weight and so forth. But you still see in this more modern design, the golden ratio scaling in the bottom component of the nozzle, because that's going to make the thrust maximized. Raptor engines, this is Elon Musk, SpaceX, got the same geometry in the bottom portion of that Bell design. When we look at, now we're getting into Ram and scramjet engines. Ramjets are a little bit slower than scramjets, but they'll go up to about Mach 3.5. This is the only ramjet or scramjet engine where I could get a cutaway and actually do these calculations. But you see in the nozzle, once again, we got golden ratio scaling in the nozzle and the back. But in the front, which this is called the diffuser, that geometry is off. It's not that amount. And the reason for that is ramjet engines require that the air, even though they're going 2 or 3 times the speed of sound, you have to slow it down to about Mach 1 in order for the engine to function. So you don't want golden ratio scaling in that situation. You want another geometry that's going to achieve the idea and the purpose of slowing down the speed of the air. But now when you look in scramjet engines as well, again, I know cutaways, but I found 8 of these diagrams from different places where both the geometry of the intake and the nozzle in the rear of the engine show golden ratio scaling. So looks like it's important in all of these contexts. I'm going to look at spacecraft here quickly. This is the last spacecraft that was developed by Wernher von Braun, our Space Shuttle Challenger. It would withstand temperatures and speeds up to Mach 25. It uses golden ratio scaling. Here's some old stuff from his era, rocket nozzles and nose cones. This is from the Jupiter. Perfect match. Soyuz, that's used to take people up to the space station. Perfect match. Sputnik, perfect match. Titan II recovery, perfect match. This is a reset satellite from Australia. Again, perfect match. Every missile on the planet, I've measured them all, have golden ratio scaling. This is the most simplistic, aerodynamic design that you can find. It's the easiest to see and to grasp. But every one of these has golden ratio scaling as well. Here's a Pershing missile from the US that has it. We've got a bunch of experimental aircraft. This EO, golden ratio scaling. And this is in the top view or the horizontal plane. In the vertical plane, we see the 13654. As I said before, we're going to see that in the vertical plane in a lot of these high-speed craft. This is the Su-75, golden ratio scaling. Here's some stuff from the 60s from Great Britain, supersonic and theoretical stuff. You see that these diagrams all have golden ratio scaling in their geometry. Here's some supersonic transport blueprints from the 60s have this relationship. Here's a 60s era Lockheed manned hypersonic vehicle. Again, the 1364, not the 27309. But these aren't being cherry picked. I mean, this is just what I have, and all of the corroborating data is in the documentary. We'll look quickly at lifting bodies now. This is a Martin X-24A lifting body. This is DARPA, NASA stuff from back in the 60 timeframe, 60s and 70s. You'll see the 654 in the vertical plane, the 27309. And the 27309 in the horizontal plane. Same thing with the Martin X-24B, 13654 in the vertical plane, 27309 in horizontal. This gets boring after a while. But lifting body, M2F2, same thing here. So we know that this is proving that this geometry not only is the one that produces the fastest speed, but it's also the one that provides optimum lift. And so even though I don't have time for this, I've found this in things like angles of attack in airplane wings and the like. But now, world's fastest aircraft, X-2 Starbuster, all of these, I'm just going to run through them, with the Valkyrie, the MiG-25, the Lockheed YF-12. These are all, fast manned craft here. SR-71. Here's a joint venture with the US and Australia called the Sci-Fire. And you see here again, perfect matches on all of this geometry. So Hermes quarter horse, same thing, 13654. Here's a 1960s reconnaissance concept craft from McDonnell. Mach 6, perfect match. And finally, the North American X-15. This was the fastest manned vehicle. This is actually a rocket that looks like a plane, but has golden ratio scaling in the nose cone as well. We're almost at the end here, but this is the 10 fastest hypersonic vehicles. The US does have one that technically meets this definition. To my knowledge, this is the only one, but hypersonics only begin at Mach 5. And so we do have one that functions with golden ratio scaling. Here's another vehicle, Boeing X-51 Wave Rider that has this geometry. This is kind of an experimental vehicle. Here's another one from England. This is the same company that made the Sabre engine that we talked about earlier. Look at the body of this aircraft, a perfect match virtually with the geometry of the Sears Hawk body and golden ratio geometry on both ends. The THAAD missile, this is the new missile system we're sending to Israel. We see golden ratio scaling in the rocket nose cone up in the top, and then we see it in the nose cone in the bottom. And finally, we've got a few more to show. These are the delivery systems for Russia's hypersonic glide vehicles. We have the Zircon with this geometry, Mach 9, and the Kenzal Mach 10, same geometry. DFZF, this is the hypersonic glide vehicle equivalent that China has developed versus the Avangard that we'll talk about in just a moment. But you see here, Mach 10 speeds, golden ratio scaling. And the second fastest craft to review once again has been the Space Shuttle Challenger, Mach 25. And here is the fastest vehicle in the world, the Avangard hypersonic glide vehicle. Couldn't find a blueprint for this, so I had to measure 4 different geometries here to see if it matched up, and it does. And here's the side view with 13654. So we've seen this from every aspect, from fish in the water to birds in the air to hypersonic glide vehicles. All of them have this geometry. And we're going to get to free energy here in a minute, but I want to ask people or tell people that, you know, I have a 6.5-hour documentary that goes through this in great detail, which you can find on youtube.com/@Pyramid Science Foundation. Go down to the 3rd row here and you'll see documentaries. The first one is the fluid dynamics. I go into much, much greater detail there. But I also have, for those who are interested in the free energy technology, information about the Tartarian architecture in the next one that's on that list, which is golden ratio and the organizing principles of the universe. Okay, so what are my conclusions? GRS geometry is, every single one of these matched. I didn't cherry pick. I looked at everything I possibly could. And golden ratio scaling geometry is literally programmed into the fabric of the ether and acts as a preferred pathway for objects to move through space with the greatest speed, the least amount of drag, and the maximum thrust with implosion and explosion physics. And then the other thing is this geometric angle is the very same angle that produces free energy versus the creation of ionizing fields, which can then be harvested as free energy electricity. Next steps for what I would love to do, I want to introduce this. I can't believe when I go in and I do a search in fluid dynamics for golden ratio and fluid dynamics or sacred geometry and fluid dynamics, nothing comes up. There is nothing. There's not any conception that this fundamental geometry in fluid dynamics comes from sacred geometry. So anybody who works in that field, has contacts in that field, I'd love to have you help me to get this information out into the engineering community, number one. Number two, measure the ionization fields produced by this geometry with a view to developing sustainable free energy. As it turns out, as I was doing this research, there are several companies who have developed the same kind of ion harvesting technology that we believe was in these old Tartarian buildings. I am in touch with one of the companies already via email. They may even watch this today. I hope that this is going to convince them that this is certainly worth a try. For any of these companies out there, if you have the technology to harvest the ions, this is the technology to artificially generate them inexpensively. And maybe, just maybe, we'll have a great free energy system that'll work 24/7 without the need for storage of energy in battery systems.
Very good.
Okay, that's it. Thank you. Oh, and finally, I got the nuclear fusion. I'll just say this. This geometry shows up in nature now through these techniques. And if anyone out there is in that field or knows people in the field that are doing implosion, and there are several of them that are, I think this could seriously improve the yield that they're getting from their research.
Very good. Thank you, Charlie. Magnificent presentation. Well, there's only one rocket scientist here, only one person who builds rockets here. So I'm sorry, but Shehnaz, over to you.
I guess I'm in trouble, huh? So thank you, Charlie, for this comprehensive explanation. And yes, so the pattern that you're showing, right? Like to me, like, Tesla discovered the vortex math, right? So vortex math pretty much goes into the very fact that the scaling is the phi ratio, right? Which is what is connected with the pattern, sacred geometry, the flower of life. And if you really look at the fact that I think everybody in this conference here understands that we live in a fractal holographic matrix, right? Which is kind of based on a grid system. If you can see the electromagnetic field, David, right? Then you know that everything ultimately is Planck length apart, because that's the Planck length is the number where the space and time beyond that no longer makes any sense, right? So what I'm saying is that the pattern that you were showing, right, which was, I'm just going to demonstrate that if you're just traversing space and time, right, you're passing, it's like a pencil shape that you were showing in all of your, all the craft, everything was doing this. It was traversing space and time using these crafts. And what I'm saying is that we actually can personally embody this, right? When we access the 0 point energy, which you call it free energy, it has many names. But the point is, when you can access it yourself, when you are in bliss, like David talks about that is what these guys are creating, technology to be able to do something that no one has ever done before, which means you are doing something that you're hitting that point, right? You're hitting the point where it becomes self-sustaining. You're hitting the point where it becomes self-organizing, right? And we do that. We have this built-in feature within our DNA that follows that, Euler formula, the way it creates the hexagonal and how it fits, as a 3D object on X and Y, Z. So I guess what I'm saying is that I agree with what you have shown and shared. And then the other thing I wanted to say is that as far as anything that becomes free energy, like what happened to Tesla, right? And I know there are people who are working on free energy device. I know personally a couple of scientists whom I am working with. So definitely we can talk offline on this subject. I work for a corporation, NASA, and I am looking at the fact that we're still going, we're doing the rocketry in the ways that works with this dense reality. I do believe that we have technology that can do way better than what we are using, but there is a reason that we are not truly coming out in open and doing it, right? Because that connects with everything Sacha understands in terms of how everybody hasn't been ready to accept that let's just be that maximum high potential human being that we want to be, the quantum being, right? So we're kind of holding off on that. But I have been learning that there's just a lot happening behind the veil, like, secret space program or whatever you want to call it, where the technology is being used.
Very good. Very good. And beautifully stated, Shehnaz. Thank you. We were hoping, actually, you'd tell us a bit about the secret space program whilst we're having an informal chat here, David, sure. I want to invite you just to comment on Charlie's presentation there. I haven't yet heard the Aboriginal sticks from Professor Ling to my left here, but if I do, I'm going to hand the mic to him. But David, I'd love your comments on Charlie's presentation, and then we're going to go to Jimmy after that, and Jimmy also has something, I think, to show us. But David, your comments.
Right.
You'll need to unmute, David.
Yeah. So, probably the best way to describe what Charlie's presenting, I think we're still at the primitive understanding of how to move through the fabric of space. So here's Einstein in a nutshell. So if I'm a rocket here, and this is the mass of the background of the air envelope that a fighter jet or a missile is pushing through, it actually, as this increases in energy, it gets heavier proportional to what it's pushing through. So my hand here is the air mass. And then if I get out into space, I'm pushing through the fabric of space. So Einstein says the more energy you apply in propulsion, the heavier the mass of the spacecraft is going to get, which means it gets harder and harder to go a millimeter faster.
Sure.
So if that nose is the proportional angle, it has it's not energy, free energy, it's energy efficiency. It's more efficient at piercing the background of what it's moving through, but it still can't go very fast. Nowhere near as fast as the UAPs have been clocked. From coming in above 80,000 feet to sea level in 0.78 seconds is over 67,000 miles an hour. So that's from the data from the U.S. Navy pilots. So that means they're not using thrust and developing the perfect blade to cut through the resistance factor. They're using the same physics, but what causes drag, what causes resistance and inertia is both the energy of a body in motion and the tendency of that body to resist acceleration because it's pushing through something that's very heavy. Eventually, what's pushing becomes as massive as what you're pushing through. That's Einstein's formula. What's causing gravity is the curvature of space-time, and the curvature of space-time is a phi golden ratio gravitational wave. It looks exactly the same as the human, what we discovered in the human brainwave. Let me just show you really quick here, so I can share screen here. Share screen, entire screen, and then we go here and share. So this is the study that was done. It was actually done at Johns Hopkins University on the human brain and other mammalia, that the ratio of these two positions at the back of the head to the soft spot to the front of the nose got very close to 1.1 to 1.618, but humans showed the greatest efficiency in that relationship. So that means that pattern exists everywhere in nature, and that humans living longer than the other mammalian species tested are more energy efficient as per lifespan and age. In fact, even the older living species on Earth were closer to that ratio. So that's just giving you a secret. So in my opinion, what Charlie presented is brilliant in the sense that that's where we've gone today with rocketry. But these UAPs are not using rocketry. In fact, as their mass gravity equivalent reduces proportional to the golden ratio, the amount of energy required in the thrust gets less and less and less, which is why with these UAPs, we don't see an energy signature. We don't see thrust. We don't see heat. We don't see a shock wave behind in the wake of the UAP. There is no thrust shock wave, which means their mass gravity is proportionally reducing, which means the pilot inside who suddenly accelerates and suddenly stops will not experience G-forces. They'll experience very less and less and less G-forces as they cancel out what is causing the curvature of space-time, which is the cause of gravity, which is the cause of what you're fighting to get a rocket to go anywhere, is where the real secret to zero-point energy lies. So when you reach true zero mass gravity, the energy required to go super fast gets less and less and less. In fact, I can actually break Einstein's law and go the speed of light with a massive object if I cancel out the mass gravity to a near zero. So that's we need to take the same physics Charlie's talking about, but we can't apply it to rocketry anymore because we've already reached the limit.
Right, agreed. And you know, David, I know that some years ago, one of my directors went to meet a scientist who was living undercover in Germany, and he had perfected the capacity to levitate on a technology. It was like a round dias you stood on with a rail, and it could levitate across the laboratory. And that we couldn't extract any information. So this is well over 10 years ago. We couldn't extract any information from the scientist other than observing in his laboratory this phenomenon. And what he told us, all we could extricate from him was this knowledge that he had perfected some kind of polymer coating on this device that was predicated on the geometry of the bumblebee.
Right. Yeah, I know about
the exoskeleton, should I say, of the bumblebee. And I think you could extrapolate the exoskeleton of the bumblebee to the dragonfly as well. Those insects that can move at a fruit fly, that can move at lightning speed and move at right angles and defy all the common laws of physics. So we knew that there is a certain geometry connected to the exoskeleton of certain insects, which has got fuck all to do with rocketry and everything to do with what you're talking about.
Yeah, so that means and this was, I'm trying to remember his name because he was in Utah, Henry Morey, getting into Charlie's idea of harvesting ions, for example, from the ionosphere, which is a huge ionized part of our atmosphere, is a really good idea because that's a way of actually extracting energy that we know is there. And NASA actually tried this with the tether incident in, I think it was 1994. They were dragging an electrodynamic tether through the ionosphere to try to gain free energy into this mile-long antenna, and it produced more energy than their calculations showed, and it fried the antenna and it broke away from Space Shuttle Columbia. And then all these UFOs showed up. So that means, and I actually found a Fibonacci spiral pulsing in and out of one of the UFOs that was chasing around the tether. And that's some of my earliest research that got me on Art Bell and George Norrie in the early days. But then Charlie's other idea to apply this to nuclear fusion is probably the most brilliant idea because, again, compression and angle and the proportion of these spheres. So imagine each sphere as a swirling vortex ball of energy getting more and more compressive, and two of them coming in, possibly even four of them coming into a center point fusion device is probably the most brilliant idea I see there. I appreciate that we have more energy efficiency per energy applied in propulsion to velocity and rocketry with that angle that he demonstrated. But there's another way of applying that, and that's his fusion idea.
Right.
I think that is where we need to go.
Well, Alex Ling wants to have a word there.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm also very familiar with the harvesting of the ions from the ionosphere, and that is actually a brilliant idea, and it has been proven to be very successful. In my research, I've been studying, I come always back when it comes to gravitational problems, and especially through space traveling. It comes always across that one of the answers would be water plasma, and that's why I'm studying actually the water so substantially. And we have conducted experiments where we have produced water plasma, and we have even seen that the golden ratio, of course, is also in the water plasma, and it can be programmed as well. So I think that this is the real way forward to use water plasma. In some ways, you could probably use it as a fabric or material to use it in spacecraft.
I see you nodding there, Shehnaz. You like the sound of that?
Well, I love the idea of using water as a technology because water is a technology, right? So no, that's amazing. Actually, I was about to ask you, Alex, is that one of the latest video I watched, it was saying that when water melts, it makes an angle of 108 degree, and it makes the phi ratio that we're talking about. So that right there, when water changes, right, its form, it's actually going into that, it's accessing that energy where it's basically accessing the self-sustaining aspect of all existence. And to me, like, if you have something that is innovative, and I mean, I would be more than happy to have an offsite chat with you on that subject and see if we can, I guess, wake up humanity. Because to me, working at NASA and surrounded by people who are completely, like, I'm just like the unicorn over there, right? So I don't relate to anyone. And that is the reason I never make any promises when it comes to making any connection with them. But I do see that they're, just like the whole world is waking up, people are waking up. They're more open, right? So that part is good. So maybe we can start shaking it up by, sharing our ideas and bringing them mainstream.
Yes, that would be fantastic. I'm very open to that. Thank you.
Very good. I'll set that into play. Jimmy, let's invite you in now, for your commentary and for anything you wanted to demonstrate to us today.
Of course. Well, thank you, Sacha. Well, first, tip of the hat to Charlie and his wonderful work. I've been introduced to his work just very recently, and fantastic job, Charlie. So great job. It really shows how we can apply this principle to actual technology and engineering, and it's really where we want to get to, right? Um, and I do have a few slides, if you don't mind, Sacha, just to put them on, so I can use that to support a bit my comment here. But really, so the there's been really an insistence from universal intelligences, non-human intelligences, to communicate this ratio, the golden ratio, and the harmonics related to that, either through ancient sacred sites, we see it's encoded, in the Pyramid of Giza and so on, or even through sightings. And since we were talking about UFOs earlier and the UAP and technology, I added a slide here to my slide deck. This is a sighting I had back in April 2022 of a golden ratio triangular craft, which appeared in front of my antenna system while I was broadcasting towards Arcturus. And I showed this work actually to Charlie on a Zoom call a few days ago. And actually, David Sereda is the one who flagged the first golden ratio proportion on that craft. If you recall, David, it's a couple of years ago. But I found out actually that this craft was actually even encoded even more profound information, where if we take any side of this triangle and we ratio it over any other side of that triangle, we always get either the golden ratio or golden ratio squared to a pretty high degree of accuracy. I mean, it's not perfect resolution, but it's all in the 99.9% and above accuracy. And so there's been an insistence to communicate this information, and I believe also they are showing us the blueprint of technology to travel interdimensionally, or in open portals and so on. A couple of other features of that golden ratio triangle that I found, I discovered, which are fascinating, which are also encoded in ancient sacred sites, as I'm going to show in a couple of minutes here. But we see the angle to the left side here is angle 4.32, so they were flagging harmonic 432, and to the right we got the reciprocal of harmonic 144. So, and we get really, as I tended to demonstrate a few days ago, that all the energies in our universe, so since we're talking about energy, either we're talking about dark energy, dark matter, or visible matter, as a matter of fact, comes from the division of source creation, division of the one over the golden ratio through the tetrahedron structure. And mathematically, in terms of quantitative sum of all these energies, this matches what our current mainstream science is predicting in terms of energy density of these different forms of energy. We get to the next slide here. So the other thing also that's fundamental to understand, we're talking about golden ratio, and the golden ratio itself has a representation in terms of these harmonics of what I call the harmonics of creation. Again, harmonic 144, harmonic 432, and we see how the golden ratio actually is equivalent to the reciprocal of the product of these two harmonics, 144, 432. And to the right side is a bit the simplified formula, where if we use actually the high accuracy speed of light in a vacuum, we can resolve the golden ratio perfectly, right? So there's really a connection to these harmonics of creation, which again have been communicated through ancient sacred sites. So we get here, a representation, what I call the trinity, if you will, of these three harmonics of creation. If we look at the how it's encoded, actually, if we look at the Great Pyramid of Giza, these are, if we take the distance expressed in the metric system, what we have to the right in the table, or the feature, or every aspect of the dimensional feature of the Great Pyramid of Giza, from the height, the side length, the perimeter of the base, the volume, the surface area, and so on. I mean, I'm not going to list them all here, but it's just to show that all these dimensional feature of that structure have actually an equivalent in terms of these harmonics that I just talked about. In blue here, we see the harmonic 144, 432, a golden ratio, all encoded in every aspect of this building. And of course includes this 7.35 degrees that Charlie has covered extensively in his wonderful work. That's also encoded there. It's also encoded in the Russian pyramid, so I'm not going to cover the benefits. Charlie already covered that, but we know there's benefit to that structure in terms of our health and technology and so on. But if we look again at the dimensional feature of the the Russian pyramid, we see that these same harmonics are encoded in there, harmonic 144, 432, at very, very high degree of accuracy. And so this is, again, a continuation of what's been encoded in ancient sacred sites like the Great Pyramid of Giza. Finally, here are something that I found it's pretty interesting. If we take that unique angle that Charlie has shown extensively, that 76.345 degrees, and we convert that into a geometric harmonic figure, and make that the diameter of a circle, then we will end up with a circle that will have a circumference equivalent, again, to harmonic 144, which is the speed of light harmonic in terms of geometric harmonic terms, and the area of that circle will match the square root of the Euler number. And the E, or the E constant, or the Euler number, is very important because in fluid dynamics, the Euler numbers is involved in the modeling, in modeling exponential spirals and decay processes and so on. So this is a clue here, a trail to follow in that sense. And finally, last couple of slides. I mean, since we're talking about energy, people don't realize that we're already swimming in a sea of free energy. If we, for instance, just take 1 cubic meter of sand, really beach sand from the beach, and we convert that matter into energy, that 1 cubic meter of sand will produce enough energy to power the entire planet Earth for 232 years. At the rate we consume energy currently. So really we're swimming in the matter is crystallized energy, and if we can just find a way really to just zap a little piece of it, of that free energy, then essentially, we've resolved our problem in terms of energy consumptions. And again, what makes that relationship possible from the general relativity equation of Einstein, equal mc squared, to convert this matter into energy? We see that formula here involves, again, golden ratio 432 and harmonic 144, which are these harmonics of creation, which I believe is the key to these upcoming technologies that will free humanity from its current dependencies and limitations.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much indeed, Jimmy. That's wonderful. Okay, I need some comments on that. Shehnaz, ladies first. You're muted.
Jimmy, thank you for sharing your wisdom. I completely, I love the fact that what you're saying is that we have access to zero-point energy, right? And we are not availing it because we are spending too much time fighting with each other, right? That's what's going on. Nobody's going inside and accessing their own zero-point energy so they can be in harmony within themselves, and then they can start converging with people who are thinking the same, so we can all come together. So no, I completely agree with you, and it's good that your data actually validates what Charlie was showing. And I basically say that when we all come together to make that spiral in a way that the goal is, like what Tesla had, right, was to just let humanity not to worry about the basic needs, right, so that they can actually do what they're really meant to do. And I feel like that is the Star Trek world, right? And that is the world we can create if we can avail everything that we're talking about here, Sacha, because what we're saying is that let's make a spiral, let's make that phi ratio, let's create that harmony where we can all come together and do something that nobody else is doing, right? And make it like a structure, like Alex was talking about, like a structure that can retain itself. Like there's a word I'm sure you guys are familiar with, it's called tensegrity. And that actually is the structure that holds the matter for the longest time, because it is like that bumblebee and dragonfly example you were giving, right? That even though it's very delicate, but it can hold itself together. And I think that if you can combine all the minds to kind of create that type of structure that can be self-sustaining, then maybe we can create something that we haven't even created yet, right? We haven't even thought about it. We haven't even tapped into it. Because what I'm noticing is that in the world that I live in the matrix world, I noticed that it's a very fear-based mentality, and it's a very competition-based mentality. And when you are in that mentality, you don't truly grow. But one thing that I do like, because my project does support SpaceX, which is Elon Musk, and Elon Musk does at least show that he truly doesn't care if somebody can make a better rocket than him. He actually says, I would love a competition. So because in his mind, it's not a competition. He says, let's just more the merrier. And I think that is the mindset we need to do what we can do, right? So we can combine what Jimmy has discovered and Charlie has discovered and what David already understands, and create those things. Because to me, it's time to embody it, right? We don't want to just talk about it. We want to embody it. So I actually have learned a little bit through my living my own life and going through a lot of challenges, is that how can I embody that 0 point energy within me so I can show up for all these different experiences that I like to show up for. Like I would love to show up for Sacha's Lazarus initiative. Right before that, I was attending a NASA meeting where we were actually looking at all the verification that SpaceX has sent to say that their rocket is definitely going to land on the moon when we go there. So I was actually checking that out, and we had this meeting going on. We were talking about that. And what I'm saying is that I think that we are multidimensional species. So therefore, because we always talk about 2 dimension, which is space and time. But when we look at ourselves, we are spiritual, mental, emotional, spiritual. So to me, this reality is just a cross section. It's a very, very small tip of the iceberg, because when you look at the golden ratio fractal time dilation that Tesla proved, we don't see anything instantaneously, right, David? We see everything in time because we're kind of trapped in time. It's just the way I see it. But the point I'm making is that because we are multidimensional and we can actually access the 0 point energy, the free energy that we would like to make and put in a technology. Because I say we are the technology, right? Which is why I refer to myself as a human craft. And what I'm saying is that we already have access to it. And now it's just a matter of proving it, that we can use it in a way that we can create something that everybody else can access it. And then that opens the door for us to not have to even go and bang at doors of corporation to kind of say that, please accept this, because this knowledge that we're talking about is thousands and thousands of years old. It's already stored in our DNA. It's just we need to make sure that we can stimulate it among the people who are going to make a bigger difference in this world.
Beautiful.
I totally agree with what you just said. And I think we overcomplicating very often to find solutions. And that's why I was looking into the most basic of all, which is water. And I've talked to so many indigenous people who have incredible knowledge, which really points into the future as well as into the past. And I'm absolutely convinced that over the next 2 years, we are having groundbreaking technology, which is just based purely on water. So I think I agree totally with what you're saying. It's all within us as well, because we are vessels of water. We have endless possibilities once we really understand how to use it.
Beautiful. And we just launched today's symposium by unveiling the New Earth Sovereignty Academy, which we are, with the coursework begins in a couple of weeks' time. But we've spent many, many months building this up and talking about technology and talking about, the utopian view that you just expressed, Shehnaz, which of course is what brings us together in this world. And we share this same knowledge that it is fellowship, the fellowship of man, which is the highest currency. And that's the thing that must now be allowed to express itself unimpeded and unmolested and unhindered by third-party intervention. And it is precisely the third-party intervention which is the problem and the thing that we are now being required to evolve beyond. If we fail, it is an extinction event. We have to evolve beyond the peril of government, beyond the peril of the Vatican and its 2,000-year hegemony, or almost 2,000-year hegemony since the Caesars of Rome, over true freedom and true liberty. It is consciousness in action that the individual and then the group collective need to be now able to stand under the central sun and actualize, activate. That's the true source. We're fascinated by toys. We're fascinated by objects that have got sharp edges. We're fascinated by fire. As the beloved Hopi say, and the Hopi presented that to me earlier this year, their blue corn, and it's my most treasured possession. But as they pointed out, the white skin took the element of fire to the worst possible extent. as custodians of fire, we did. We took it to the Einstein Oppenheimer compact. We took it all the way, renting the fabric of time, space, and splitting atoms. That's a uniquely diabolical and stupid event horizon that we manifested in this sacred realm, whilst the red skin, black skin, yellow skin, and brown skin peoples of the world simply tried to survive the evils of our hegemony. I'm talking about the crowns of Europe, the Portuguese, Spanish, Dutch, and English, and Frankish, and Germanian peoples. So, you know, we have now arrived at a point in our evolution where we are required, absolutely alpha omega, to actualize within this draconian dream spell that we have permissioned. We permitted it. Didn't happen to us. And that's the rub. That's the real rub. It didn't happen to us. We're not victims of anything ever, nor can we be under God's eternal gaze. We can never be victims of anything ever. And only the true realized soul comes to that understanding. But it is that technology of awakening to the bounty of a limitless quantum multiverse and open source engineering, for instance. You know, the gift that my beloved late friend Robert David Steele was wanting to birth to the world, this idea that former CIA chap wanted to gift that to the world, open source engineering, this deconstruction of these limitations and boundaries, these insane firewalls to our own superluminal genius that we've allowed to become the very matrix, the cage that we claim to want to escape from. Well, how about we stop with the patents? How about we stop with these godless copyrights and patents? I don't copyright anything ever. All my arts and writings, things are given freely to the world. I must some things in order to pay the goddamn bills, but that's it.
But you know, I 100% agree with you, Sacha. When it comes to these technology, that every time when somebody did a patent, that's when they were killed. I mean, no offense, but you see, it's like you're asking, like what I'm saying is that rather than asking for permission, we should do what we need to do. And when we do something that's going to be amazingly useful for humanity, nobody's going to say that did you have the peer review, because we're going to say that you are peer reviewing it, but just by virtue of getting the benefit of it, right? To me, it's all about, like, let's just no longer stay in that very one-dimensional mindset where we have to constantly prove it on a physical spectrum. Let's make sure that you use it and you're going to know whether you want to use it or not. I'm not going to have to advertise for it anymore.
Right. Look at my beloved late friend who died last year, Jim Humble, the metallurgist and geologist, who 30, 40 years ago in the African jungles was mining, was paid to oversee mining operations. And many of his mining workers, black skin miners, were dropping dead from malaria. Malaria, we understand from the United Nations, is the biggest killer on the surface of the earth. And so he starts to set up hospital tents, you know, in the jungle, obviously to cater to these dying miners who are falling from malaria. And he starts to try to ease their passage out of life with giving them what they're asking for. So he's feeding them water, which was potted water, which they had to cleanse using chemicals. And then he adds citric acid or pineapple juice to some of those, you know, people on their deathbeds, just to ease their life. And he starts to notice that when he gives a particular combination of this potable water and citric acid, that they, within 8 hours, get off their deathbed and are going back to work. So over a period of time, he starts to go, hang on, something's going on. Those people, miners in the tent, that are getting this combination are getting better. So he starts to study and discovers chlorine dioxide, right? The miracle molecule, as he calls it. God love him. So what does he do? Eureka! Jim Humble goes to the United Nations and offers up chlorine dioxide as a free open source cure for the biggest killer on earth, knowing that you can take swimming pool bleach and a pineapple, basically, and you can create something that can destroy most of the harmful pathogens known to man, not just malaria. And this is an incredible discovery. Look what happened. He died at the age of, I was 90, in his late 90s, last year, on the run, in hiding, in Mexico from the authorities because he tried to give to the world that cure. He even a few years ago set up a ministry and tried to protect it through a church and tried to just disseminate this information. My point being that, when our beloved brothers and sisters amongst us and fellows do try and have tried to make things open source, the dragnet of government and compliances and regulatory authorities come in. Of course, that's all part of the evil construct of government that I'm talking about. That's the technology we need to disassemble, disentangle, disidentify from, disassemble, deconstruct, is government and all of the fictitious borders that it's created. In any event, I'm definitely going off on a rant here. I think we're David, time for you to comment, and then I also want to hear back from Charlie.
Okay.
You'll need to unmute there, Dave.
So can I show something that'll take about 10 or 12 minutes?
You may.
So think of, Shehnaz, a whole new concept in energy and propulsion, which is harmony, as opposed to fighting. I look at rockets as fighting, which is inertia, which is drag, rather than being in harmony. I noticed that a great number of the greatest UFO sightings occurred in a pattern starting at 1917 Fatima every 5 years. And I figured out the answer, and which is, just like slingshotting, when a rocket slingshots around a planet's gravitational body, it's using the harmony of that energy to be more efficient. But what I'm about to present now is going to show a golden ratio pattern that will reveal a much higher way that I think they're actually doing it. So watch this. And I have to make sure I'm sharing audio. Good. Right here. So.
Okay, here we go.
Here we go.
Okay, take it away.
We don't hear the sound. I don't know if there was sound that they.
Oh, wait. Oh boy.
Okay, I think we'll wait for you to jump back on there.
Hang on.
Whilst you're doing that, David, I'm just going to say something to one of the questions coming in from the audience. Someone's mentioning the QT Pi project that I was involved with a number of years ago, in which we did. Michael Tellinger, who I was with actually last week in South Africa, but Michael Tellinger was with me in Bali at the time when we did an unveiling of a technology called the QT Pi, which was a free energy technology. Someone here is asking what happened to that. I'll briefly, in 1 minute, explain. We took that technology after the unveiling in Bali at the first New Earth Festival, which we proved and lit up a whole bunch of toys with the so-called free energy. We took that technology to a laboratory in Holland. This was the Fritz Pop laboratory, which you guys will know of. David, you will know of Fritz Pop. We took it to that laboratory, being the best laboratory in the world that we were aware of in high frequency stuff, analytics. And the owner of that laboratory, a wonderful man called Dolph Zantinger, took it in, applied some serious analytics to that technology for a couple of weeks, then phoned me and demanded that I fly into Amsterdam, which I did. And he said it was a very serious matter. And he and his chief engineer met me with the QT Pi. I was expecting to be given fantastic news that they were going to certify it and we could go to market. And what he essentially said was, you have to shut this project down. You must shut this project down. He said it is absolutely eliciting so-called over-unity. If we want to talk in those terms, it is absolutely eliciting over-unity, and that's a phenomenon. But he said at the same time, you appear to be opening up what we will call an under-unity value or an under-unity wave, and we don't know what that's doing. But it is not healthy because the clairvoyants and sensitive a circle connected to the Fritz Pop laboratory was saying, turn it off, turn it off, turn it off. So it appeared that we were creating some kind of mini black holes. Every time we turned the device on, it was creating some under unity value that was unleashing into the 3D temporal field, something which was inexplicable, but appeared to be incredibly nefarious, rather like the Super Hadron Collider, you know, on a mini scale. So that's the answer to why the cutie pie disappeared. It was very difficult to go out publicly and speak about that at the time because I didn't own the technology. And I couldn't go out and do harm to it or its inventor, Warren Henshey. But that was the reason. In any event, David, I'll hand the floor back to you. Presumably you're back online.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know why it's not sharing my audio. I maybe have to send this to Christy if she's around, and then she could get it up on the screen. But it's part of what I presented the other day, but it goes much deeper, which is that there is, and I presented this multiple times, that using, you know, my wife's formula 591 to the golden ratio, we reveal all the orbital periods of the known planets plus 9 more invisible hyperdimensional planets. Yes. And that the periods of these UFOs coming in, they seem to be following a pattern of harmony of the orbital periods of both the visible and the invisible hyperdimensional planets that I presented. And that means, just like slingshotting, everybody knows what slingshotting is. If you've seen a sci-fi movie where we take a rocket and we go around the back of the sun or the back of a planet, and we use its gravitational throw to slingshot the spacecraft on its trajectory and save a huge amount of energy in the propulsion, you know, equation. So what I'm seeing in studying the orbital periods compared to the arrival of all the major UFO sightings in history that actually correspond back into this pattern. And there are other physicists that have come up with this same idea that mass and energy, a planet being a supermassive form of energy, has that these UFOs may be synchronized to unseen orbits. And so then I brought up the newest discovery of the invisible suddenly appearing and suddenly vanishing stars and or planets that Beatrice Villarreal and the Soul Foundation have brought forth into the media. And they've known this since the early 1950 coming forward from the Palomar Observatory in San Diego. Yeah. I have a presentation on this that is really stunning, and I did show part of it last time, but I'm having a hard time getting my.
Alex wanted to just intersect briefly, if you may, yeah, Alex. What do you want to say?
Yes, I wanted to add that all the crafts, the UFOs, or the spaceships, whatever you would like to name them, they're following a specific flight pattern, and that flight pattern of my because we're conducting a lot of research at the minute, extracting blueprints from different water sources, and we came to a conclusion that each of those waters can be actually used as a navigation tool. And if you have access to water plasma, then you can actually program the water plasma to use that as a GPS system. So
wow,
it's very complex, but it's very possible.
See, that's what I'm getting at. See, there's a ratio in my formula. So here, because I can't get the video to play, I will pull up the slide. So I can definitely show a slide. And exactly what you're saying, Alex, in that there's a way to program water, of course, which can be turned to a plasma with what you would call the harmony. There's my slide. Now let me just see if I can get you to see this by present, share screen, window, and where is my slide? I just had it. Okay, cancel. I gotta pull up my slide again because it just vanished. And then
We may have to abort in a couple of minutes because we've got to wind down this segment today. We're on a bit of a schedule.
Okay, so I could do a present. I have to be more organized because to have this material already. But what I'm saying is exactly what Alex said, because you make hydrogen out of water, and then as a plasma and as a fuel. But if you program that hydrogen water fuel with the harmony between Earth vibration and your target vibration, will they gravitationally attract? In fact, the very first evidence of gravity that we know of in astronomy is hydrogen. The way hydrogen forms the massive spiral arms of the Milky Way galaxy, the hydrogen bands are following the pattern of gravity. And gravity, of course, is caused, I believe gravity is caused by time as a force, not as its measurement of time, but as a bond force. I can prove this mathematically in an incredible model I developed way back in the year 2000. And therefore, what Alex is saying, like if two plasmas have a harmonic bond between them, their ratios are such that they will come together. Exactly. Right? They will come together. And there's some very advanced concepts that we haven't even thought of yet. Exactly. So when you see a pattern in the arrival of UFOs and the leavings, and Roswell fits the pattern, the Phoenix Lights fit the pattern, the UFOs over the Washington Capitol in 1952 or 3 fits the pattern. In fact, all the big ones fit my pattern. And then when you see the new evidence that I'm presenting in the vanishing and appearing of stars in the harmony to Fatima, which is an appearance of a planet or a star that caused the phenomena transiting between the sun and the earth on October the 13th, 1917. And then you see all the UFO appearances following this pattern from that date going forward, and the vanishing and appearing stars following the pattern. There's something we're missing. So when you think of how powerful slingshotting is, how powerful harmony is, with Alex's idea of programming water to combine those harmonies, and then what would happen? What would the result be?
And just to underscore again, this is some of Alex's work here that he's doing here in Bacalar in Mexico. And ultimately, the aim, and we've got a big broadcast, just to repeat, we've got a big broadcast coming up next week during the US elections. We're choosing that broadcast window to create a counterpoint to the US bun fight and to invite people into the new dreaming by participating and putting their God-given attention into the show that we will be broadcasting, which is really connected to how we can now tether our consciousness and our ideas and our new dreaming through the waters, through the quantum offering of the waters of this plane. And we can catalyze the new dreaming and walk away from the old satanic dialectic of geopolitics and banking and usury and war, disease, and poverty. So that's essentially what we're going to be doing. And this is just some of the extraordinary stuff which we'll be revealing in that broadcast.
Alex, have you taken, for example, a telescope, and this was done in the early days in the movie Water, the earliest version of The Secret Life of Plants, with Clive Baxter, where an astronomer took a telescope and isolated the light on Sirius, and then he had the light collect into a water dish with, of course, microorganisms in the water, and then he connected electrodes to the water dish, and of course, plant organisms are in that organic water from a well, and it started bleeping in what appeared to be an intelligent signal. So in the same way, with your testing, have you isolated any starlight and bonded it to a water sample and looked at results like that?
If I can interject briefly, I sent you, Sacha, a slide about water, maybe to share with Alex, because it's really connected to what we're talking about. Yeah, so when we take the one molecule of water and we convert the mass of one molecule of water into energy, we get a harmonic energy exactly matching 1 over a golden ratio. This is quite remarkable, right? Because that's actually the same primordial fractalization mechanism that creates all the energies in our universe, as I showed, the dark energy, dark matter, and regular matter. And once we have that geometric harmonic energy, using the Max-Planck equation, we can tune essentially a frequency to match that energy, right? Once we have an energy, we can create a frequency to match that energy. And actually, I'm using my radio station here, an antenna system, to generate different frequencies that are in harmonic resonance with different material. The water is one of them. I'm just at the beginning of this research right now, but just wanted to make that point here that's connected to what we're talking about today.
Fantastic. And you know what Alex is doing and what we're working with him on accomplishing is establishing a library repository. Right? Would you just want to explain that piece? Because I think it's a tremendous consequence. And wouldn't it be great if we could get Elon Musk to get us some samples from outer space?
That would be amazing, because there's actually water plasma also in space, and that's something which most scientists even don't look into. There's apparently more water plasma in existence in space in dark matter. So there are a lot of things.
Are you nodding? Are you nodding at that, Shehnaz, or not?
Well, because I'm just saying that water is the main reason we're going to the dark side of the moon, right? Because we found the frozen water, right, in the Shackleton crater of the south pole of the moon. So what I'm saying is that a lot of things, Alex, that you are probably understanding it, I do believe that, I'm hoping actually, but I do believe that people who are working on going, wanting to colonize moon is kind of leveraging on that, right? Because the goal is that we go there and we harness, what the lunar dust and the trace material in the moon and the water that's already there. And how can we avail that to create, the water and create the fuel so that we can use that as a layover to go to Mars? Because everybody knows, right, that Elon is very attached to going to Mars. Moon is just, we have to go because there's no direct path right now. At least that's the understanding, right? So what I'm saying is, yeah.
I hope you're scooping up some helium-3 on your passage to the moon.
Yeah, because Magwitch, when I worked for Magwitch in his deuterium and helium-3 fusion, Earl Van Landingham, who was NASA's premier rocket scientist in those days, I knew Earl and we had these long talks. He said the deuterium and helium-3 fusion reaction would produce 18 MeV protons that could send spacecraft up to a tenth the speed of light.
There you go.
The speed of light is faster than any of the UAPs the Navy has tracked so far.
Yeah.
So that's Magwitch and Earl Van Landingham, but they were defunded. Even Earl Van Landingham, who was the head of all space access and technology at NASA, told me that he couldn't get NASA to give Magwitch his money.
You're talking about Bogdan, right?
Yeah, talking about Bogdan, yeah.
I told you I got a weird message from him recently, but I thought he was dead.
He died a long time ago, yeah.
Right.
Not a long time ago.
Well, then there is somebody out there who's masquerading as him, and it's very compelling. In any event, sorry, I think we cut Alex off mid-sentence a little earlier when I wanted to flip and get Shehnaz's response to what he was saying about the moon. Sorry, continue, Alex.
Yes. Absolutely right. I get the concept, and I know exactly what kind of technology you're trying to achieve with that. However, there are other methods of harvesting this information, and you don't even have to physically go to the moon to do that. What we're doing here on our planet is we're harvesting all the information. We're building a network of water guardians, let's say, and these people will hand over or will ship the water samples to us, to our office, and then we're going to extract the blueprint, because we have seen actually that some of the blueprints are shared with other places, and especially the ones which we know that they are portals as such. So they have a very similar blueprint. So I'm absolutely sure that these blueprints can be then extended to a universal mapping system, which then includes all the other planets, and you can go even into different galaxies. It is literally a language of the water. And when we understand and decipher this, and that's what we're doing at this moment, we are using a certain technology to actually read the sounds of the water. And even in ancient times, they were talking from the cosmic ocean and all the different frequencies and the songs of water, which the indigenous people would use to sing to the water, to be in harmony with the water. So there's a lot of knowledge hidden. And of course, the Iranians, who had great knowledge and communicated with different planets. but by purely just communicating with water.
And David, I mentioned to you the other day when we spoke that it was Dr. Ling was the one who taught me earlier this year on my tour, because he joined 2 or 3 of the fixtures on stage. In his presentation, which is absolutely mind-blowing, he demonstrates how King Solomon, hitherto regarded as the great arbiter of wisdom and jurisprudence and what have you, was actually the first supreme paramount king of kings, ruler of men, who put water into cisterns and pipes, thereby destructuring it and feeding it to the populace in order to literally dial down the consciousness of humanity. Just an extraordinary, I think, historic revelation, which is changing everything. I've often wondered, well, if King Solomon was so great, why are the Saturnian forces like the House of Rothschild going to such extraordinary measures to rebuild the Temple of Solomon and to establish, Zionist Israel and all of that agenda? And of course, what's playing out right now, Israel and Palestine, is proof positive of what I'm talking about. It's the epicenter of the diabolical dialectic on the face of the earth. And here we are all revering and worshiping King Solomon as the highest icon, and yet it could be that he was indeed, we know he was involved in witchcraft. Absolutely. And he was doing a lot of nasty stuff, demonic conjuring and what have you. But yeah, David, I mentioned that to you, and you said something about that makes sense, because Solomon also did put some incoherence into the measurement of the cubit. What was that?
Well, no, it's the Holy of Holies. So the original Holy of Holies at the time of Moses was 10 by 10 by 10 royal cubits. And back at the time of Moses, you didn't have all these different cubits, right? The cubits started changing with the separations of all the religions. And the Queen's Chamber in the Great Pyramid is 10 by 10 by 10 royal cubits. But the time of Solomon, he doubles it to 20, which means the wavelength got bigger as a temple, as a frequency tuner, and the frequency went down. But the new plan to rebuild it, their numbers are all wrong, and that's because there's so many different cubits, and everybody has to have their own cubit, and therefore as a structure, as a solid state wavelength, and a square wave being a cubic temple. Is if the measurement's wrong, the frequency is wrong of the space. And just like the way we create crystal oscillators for generating frequencies in electronics is based on the size and dimensions we cut the quartz crystal at for the crystal oscillator. So if your cube is wrong, your frequency is wrong, and then your harmonic is wrong. So why is the Queen's Chamber the same as Moses? His original Holy of Holies is where the Ark of the Covenant went, where the staff of Aaron went, which lay in the Ark of the Covenant, and it was 10 by 10 by 10. And then it becomes, which is the Queen's Chamber. And the King's Chamber is the same as Moses' original holy place, which was a rectangular tent that was 10 by 20 of the long cubits. And under Solomon, it's 20 by it's 20 wide by, I think, 40 long. So the King's Chamber is 10 by 20 long, which is Moses's original. So why do you have, actually I have graphics of this. We're
out of time there, David. Just be aware. I'm loving this conversation.
Yeah, so that means that if the temples are frequency tuners to the ritual even of baptism in the waters,
yes,
though then the waters get destructured and the ritual is destructured. So I believe temples that are built perfectly, look how old the pyramid is. It's never been destroyed. But Solomon's temple was destroyed, which means that it didn't hold a harmony. But the temples that hold their harmony,
very good point, David. Yes,
are still standing.
Some of these models have been actually created mathematically in connection with the sigils which he was using underneath, or they were kind of embedded into the structure, and through the water also enhanced. So there is a lot more to just understanding, because we had a lot of pyramids which we investigated where they found, for example, mercury right in the water source, which was underneath these structures. And we couldn't understand why mercury is there, but now it makes sense, because in case that the water was drying up, the mercury would still carry the blueprint, and so it would just be an ongoing energy source to refuel whatever intention they had to put into the water or into the structure. So there's a lot of manipulation which has been done over the last thousands of years. So the original structures have been partially built on top to, for example, put a section of Solomon's temple even on pyramids to interact, to destruct the energies, the original energies. So there's a lot more.
I love what you're saying. I also want to point out, remember, Jesus was dragged to the top of Solomon's temple by Satan and tempted him to jump off and throw him off, which shows that Satan is having dominion over that temple. I don't think anybody's ever thought of this.
Fascinating.
So and it's the same. The Apostle James, which is really Jesus' brother James, who headed the first church in Jerusalem, was thrown from the top of Solomon's temple to his death and then stoned to death at the bottom. So why do the dark forces seem to operate around that temple? Whereas, again, the original one was actually made of fabric. It was a tent, and it was the same dimension.
That's right.
Pyramid chambers. That's very interesting to me. Nobody really asked that question.
You know,
that Satan put Jesus on top of the temple. It's 60 feet high. To the top of Jesus' head is 60 feet. You jump 60 feet, you're going to die.
You're dead.
But how do we get him up there? There's no ladder. Their walls are like this. No one ever asked this question. How does Satan get Jesus on the top of the temple and say jump?
Very good. Christy, I'm speaking to my producer in the green room here. We have to do a segment on deconstructing the myth, Solomon's temple. We really have to, and bring some of these experts in. Friends, we're over time here. I just want to, Charlie, a last comment from you, please. We've not heard from you for too long.
Well, that's okay. I mean, the research that I've done today, this is kind of a stopping point for pure research. I want to take this now and apply it and see if it works. I think it's going to work. Can't wait to come back maybe next year and tell you that we have a free energy technology that actually works. So, and there's some other things, Shehnaz, that we'll, if we can talk about off screen, that I have discovered. We didn't talk about today, but about possibly why I think I've discovered at least one reason why our hypersonic missile program doesn't work, and it has to do with geometry. So I'd love to talk to you about that offline.
Offspring with Shehnaz, Soni there. I thought there was something neither of you are telling us. Very, very happy to have had you all today. Shehnaz, thanks so much for joining us, as ever.
Yeah. Thank you.
We have to have a private conversation, because we have to have a conversation regarding our mutual friend, Eliza Donovan.
Yes, 100% agreed. And there's just so much, my God, and I definitely want to connect with Alex. And I think we all need to connect in a way where we can discover, right, how we can harmonize ourselves, just like you are figuring out how the water can harmonize. So we can create something that we haven't even thought about. That's what I'm looking forward to.
We'll invite you to the broadcast next week and see if your schedule will allow that. And if you can dive in even momentarily, that would be great. But thank you, Shehnaz. Charlie, thanks so very much for that presentation. Deeply grateful. David, love you madly. And your beautiful segment on Crystal is coming down the pike in a couple of hours' time. Thank you for joining us. Jimmy Blanchette, thank you so very much, brother. Lovely seeing you today. And Dr. Alex Ling, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Very good. All right, friends, much love to you all. I'm going to drop you out here. Remove. And Christy, I think it is now on you to trigger. Am I missing something? Let me just refer to my production notes, friends, because oftentimes I do this. No, she says, Sacha, wrap up. And then Christy to trigger a pre-record. This pre-record I did yesterday with Dr. Christina Rahm, many regard as the most credentialed quadruple PhD medical scientist on the face of the earth. Just incredible woman. And she, of course, is the avatar mind behind the Root brands and their extraordinary gifts to the world. Emphasis, the stuff that completely cleanses the blood of these parasites and graphene oxide and Morgellons syndrome and all the rest of it. So this is a conversation, an update yesterday that I did with Dr. Christina Rahm and Clayton Thomas, her partner, who heads up the Root Brand company. I'm very excited about this. There was supposed to be a 20-minute conversation. It ended up being almost an hour. But listen to it, because she explains some extraordinary things here, especially if you're women and if you're a female under the age of 50 and you're concerned about these spiking cancers and what have you. Dr. Christina has worked out some extraordinary revelations as to why that's happening, and why obviously the turbo cancers are happening. She goes into tremendous depth here, and there is a way of reversing out of that in the now. So friends, I'll leave it at that. Christy, take it away. Oh yes, it's that time of year, friends, that time of decade, that time of generation when I get back in alignment with my besties, Dr. Christina Rahm and Clayton Rahm, my two besties. I'm going to bring them into the studio right now so you can share their beautiful faces. Christina, so happy to see you. Clay, happy to see you. How have you been? Christina, ladies first.
I'm amazing. So Sacha, I think about you all the time because I've been traveling everywhere and I've been put in different situations that I think, how would Sacha handle this? And I think he would be proud of me, to be honest. I've tried to handle each situation like we've discussed with always looking for humanity and what we can do. That has led me to meet with a lot of presidents and prime ministers and people that are in high positions worldwide. And if you ask me why, I would tell you it's because I have received 8 new patents this year and 8 books. And so that has gotten the recognition of a lot of leaders because the patents that I write are around cleaning out food, as well as supplements and vitamins, reversing aging, regeneration of the skin, hair, and nails, and of the environment. And one of the patents got approved to basically take any leaf, seed, oil, plant, and clean it out of toxins, because we understand now that even if you are in a place that you don't think has GMOs and pesticides, they travel throughout our world. Like we've talked about it, our world's toxic. And really being able to make an impact has been important to me. I can't say I like everyone I meet. I can say, though, that I have the same mission I've had since the first time I've met you. And we're just continuing, I'm continuing to play out that mission to really try to give back to humanity, health, and for those who want it, because we say this all the time, not everyone wants to be healthy. Not everyone wants to do things for humanity. But I really feel like this year more than ever has been a testimony to really trying to help, not just in the United States, but worldwide.
Well, I've got to say, no one deserves a success more than you and Clay. I mean, you are the rock star of all things vanguard and progressive in biochemistry and microbiology and vanguard health science. And God knows that is the tip of the spear of redemption and salvation, is how we redeem ourselves at the matrices of the atomic, cellular, and molecular matrices of our bodies. That's the interface right there of God and the great abyss, the great void. And the way I see it, the work that you're doing is just conjuring into the earthly plane the solutions that we've needed for a long time. God knows we've been under siege and under assault for millennia as a species. And since the first time I met you and Clay and the conversations that we've had, it's the first time I've felt very comfortable having conversations that interface hard science with ascension and with the resurrection of the fabric of human soul, because that's what we're talking about. Clay, you're the bodyguard to the rock star. Tell me, how do you guys do it? Why is she looking 15 years younger than when I last saw her? What kind of witchery are you guys up to?
Bro, you took away what I was going to say. I was going to say the same thing about you. Remember 4 years ago when we were so much older?
Sacha looks great.
I'm like, what are we doing that works so good? Oh yeah, we listen to her.
There you go.
It's like, good Lord.
What do you take? Okay, start with that. Clay, you wake up in the morning. What are you taking every day?
So I'm kind of the one that learned a long time ago that if my life was going to be what it was supposed to be, I just am supposed to listen to my wife. And so a couple months ago, I think it was about 3 months ago, I started to become Rootarian. And because when we started this foray back 4.5 years ago, when we were getting introduced, Sacha, in talking with Christina, her goal, and she'll say yes to this because she'll say he can't say it that way, and then she'll go, yeah, I actually did that. Her intention was to create a series of products, not one, because there's no silver bullet, even though like Clean Slate has been the foundation to everything that we're doing. And that's true. It is the foundation. It is the key to all of it. But what she kept saying to me 10 years ago, and it came through to the last 4.5 years, was that I need to create something that if everything got so bad, or if we were stuck on an island somewhere, that we could live on. Right. And that culmination of that entire series came a few months ago when we were able to release the last part of the equation, which was Sculpt and Crush.
Yes.
And so at that point, I've done some testing to do what she talked about, which was primarily live on what we have. So Clean Slate, Zero In, Restore, Relive Greens, Give Me Back My Youth, Immune Defense Shield. By the way, the most important secret weapon of all of this, and Sculpt and Crush. And I could dive into 5 hours of the science on why all of those are designed this way, but and she'll go over Crush and Sculpt a little bit. But it took about 90 days, even from everything that we're doing, because I've been 20 to 25 pounds heavy for the last 4 years because of flying 200 days a year, the stress of doing everything, not training, not working out, because I tore my hamstring 25 years ago, so I can't train the way that I used to. After 90 days of adding Sculpt and Crush, I literally lost all the weight. It was gone. And on our friends started going, do you know you've lost a ton of weight? And my suits were like, even this shirt, because this shirt was done by my tailor. And I'm like, wait a minute, I've got like 3 inches of room now. This is not very good. And it's very good. I like the way you look at me now.
So what is okay? Let's do it, because my audience do not know Sculpt and Crush yet. They need to. I was pacing around in South Africa when we last spoke on this, and you were giving me some of the science. Now I'm back at base. Christina, you're the expert. Sculpt and Crush, what are we talking about?
Yeah, so I really think the difference from the very beginning, Sacha, we talked about, like Clay said, we're going to launch stuff that's going to help the world. And one of the things that I knew from the very beginning was we have got to stop obesity and diabetes, which are causing colon cancer. Like the microbiome is so messed up. So I created a formula called Sculpt. And I just want everyone to know this. It's not a substitute for Ozempic, because I feel like it's much better. It's natural. And I'm not talking bad about the pharmaceutical industry. This particular product does not have side effects. And I'm using a lot of natural ingredients that have a mechanism of action of going in and blocking things. It is a nutraceutical in most countries, except for Switzerland. It's considered a pharmaceutical because of some of the agents that I used. And I do want everyone to know I don't use synthetics. So if you're worried that I'm using synthetics or any kind of technology that could hurt your body, absolutely not. Everything's natural. In fact, I have patented now something I mentioned a little bit earlier. The process is approved by the U.S. Patent Office, where I can take leaves, seeds, oils, plants, beans, vitamins, minerals, and take out any mycotoxin, any GMO, any type of pollution, but preserve the properties that have to do with antiviral, anti-insectual, anti-parasitic, antifungal, antibacterial. The patents that I did for the manufacturing process that I've been using are to clean all of the things out, but leave the good properties in the plants and leaves. I said this from the very beginning. We can live to be 120 years old or even longer if we put the right things in our body and take the things that shouldn't be out. And so finally, those patents got approved. That's huge.
Have we lost Christina? Oh, you're back.
Yeah, sorry. So those patents have been approved. And Sacha, it's so important because I don't think people completely understand that inside this body is a city. We've talked about it many times. If you don't have the right ingredients that can block things like sugar and carbs and toxins in your body, then you just are creating a trash dump. And so being able to create Sculpt to really help the body work more effectively, it's not just a weight loss product. The product was meant to go into people's bodies and help block things that shouldn't be in there and to support the body's natural ability. And then the peptides were launched along with it, because the truth is you lose peptides as you age. You can't continue to have muscle. You can't continue to lose weight unless you have basically this mechanism of action that's helping your body. And most of us want to look like we looked when we were 20. But to do that, you've really got to give your body what it needs. And that's what we were able, and that's what I was able to work on, and the company was able to produce this year. And then I did a skincare line, because a lot of women and men think they can just put things on their skin that will help. And we had created Reno, I did, which really helped with the phytoplankton and the nutrients and the minerals. But I kept going back, Sacha, to this. If you put all these nutrients and minerals on the skin, and even if you've cleaned out the body, but you don't have peptides to support it, then your bioavailability is not working correctly. So Crush was launched for the inside the body, and the skincare peptide line was launched for the outside. And we've noticed huge differences in people since they've been taking all of those things together. So it truly has been a transformational year for the Root brands and what we've done for science, I think, for the world. I know you see a lot of amazing scientists, and I do too, but this is a pivotal piece that can really help humanity.
Well, I still say, yeah, Clay Woman, I still say that for me, the alpha point of roots, and I love rootism. I'm also going to be a rootist or a rootarian. I'm going to join you now. But for me, clean slate is gospel. It's living gospel. This stuff is living gospel. And this is the one thing everywhere I go on earth, my gift to everyone is this, just so you know. But you do have a whole bunch of other things. Do we have any filmed media that we're able to also put out? Do you have any commercials and stuff that we can incorporate?
There's a bunch that's done now. I want to hit on
we were
one
supposed
thing.
to send we were supposed to send it, and I don't know if that didn't happen, Clay, because we wanted to show some of the new commercials that we had and media that talks about the science. So Sacha, I've done quite a bit, and I don't have my phone here with me, but hopefully we sent that to you. If not, we can.
No problem at all. We'll edit it in for the big show, but that's delightful. Thank you, Clay.
The crazy thing is she just flew through some stuff that I think if you process it as she says it, you go, oh, that was cool. What she said is not that, oh, she came up with a proprietary formula and she did this. The patents are already done and approved.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what's crazy in this. And it leads to a couple hints. It takes 5 to 7 years for patents usually to be approved. And she's already got multiple. I think there's 7 that are already done. And when you dive into these, I mean, there was I think it was about 3 months ago that the X Prize was introduced, that there's $101 million that they've put up for anybody that can lead to science for anti-aging.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me do this right. She already holds a patent on reversing aging.
Very good. We want to know all about that, please. Thanks.
Yeah. You know what we call here, Sacha, here's the beautiful part that we've always talked about before and that we're living, that there's symbolism in everything. So the series of products that are patented to reverse aging and already proven to do so through heart rate variability analytics and other things, it's called the Trinity.
Yeah, but the Trinity didn't have all the mechanisms like immune defense shield where I was able to add NAD. And again, guys, I want to just say this. I'm cleaning the NAD and the vitamins and the minerals out because most vitamins, minerals, nutrients have toxins. And I keep saying this, and I'm not trying to scare people at all. We've to clean them, but 99.9% of the scientists aren't, because they think if they source it from something that's non-GMO, which is what I do, and the parent plants are non-GMO, then the vitamins, minerals, and leaves must be okay. But the more I looked into this, Sacha, the more I started understanding I've got to do additional work for humanity, because if they're going to put things in their body after they clean it, and I'm just going to say this to you, clean spirits and clean slate are the two products that I'm criticized about, really nothing else, because they are so dynamic and important. And I'm like you, if I could give one to every single person I meet, I would. I don't take money from that product, just so everybody knows. And if you ask me why, it's because that product is the product that humanity needs to start. That's your baseline, right? And that's why I think it's so instrumental. I want people to look at the label. The label says vitamin C, magnesium, and it says silica. But if you look at the fine print, it's a proprietary brand that had 87 trace minerals added in different sequences, and the vitamin C cleaned and used in different sequencing, along with the silica that I pulled out. So I even went back after Root started and made that a cleaner product, and a product that would really help the body with the aging process and really help reverse, was my goal, reversing what had already happened to people. I didn't want people to basically just start with a clean slate. I wanted people to remediate their body. And what I mean by that, true remediation is when you are reversing the age, because you're cleaning things and then supplementing and making it better than it was before. And that has been the goal this year. Let's make people better than they were before they tried any of the products. Let's not just help with side effects, help where they are right now. Let's go back and start from fresh and really remediate the whole body like we need to remediate the soil.
So that you're talking about, again, favorite subject, resurrection of the angelic template, which self-exists, self-reveals, self-fulfills behind the mortal frame. And once you have clarified and cleansed sufficiently and created the protections, so to speak, biologically, then the natural immanent template begins to self-reveal, because that right there is the science of ascension. It's actually a reversal to the prime template, and that's the most exciting aspect of the biological science that you're spearheading right now. Correct?
I absolutely think it is, and I have to say this: the thing that's so important to me, Sacha, and I really connected when I first met you, because I understand the pineal gland, and I understand the ability that the body can have. We are the highest source of energy. I had a friend ask me the other day, Christina, could they use the human energy to do things? 100%. We are the strongest energy there is. That's why we have to understand how powerful we are, and we have to clean out this body, and then we have to make it better than it would ever have been, because we need to be able to have our spirits and our souls be able to channel basically whatever information we need from the universe, because we are the most powerful species. We don't need to give up and give away our power to a virus or a bacteria. We need to take the power back. And that has been my goal with this whole line. Let's take the power back for humanity.
Can I do a little bit of a Trumpian weave through this? Will you allow me? So since I watched the Rogan interview, I've watched a couple things, and he's using this. So we're gonna weave some stuff here. So in 1970, the World Health Organization published a research paper on meta-analysis done back in the 1950s and 60s. And what they had published and proven in 1970 is that there is one cause to all chronic degenerative disease. Well, what they published at the time was 85% of all chronic degenerative disease. That one cause is mercury. Right. Yeah. Mercury being the worst neurotoxin known to man, that causes a cascade of chaos throughout everything else, because the presence of mercury in an operating system in a biological organism of any kind. So it can be the environment, it can be people, it can be animals, it can be plants. It does the same thing. It is highly deleterious and chaotic. And Sacha and I will probably go back to the reverse polarity of that. That's quite likely in times long ago. But yeah. This issue, everything that people are talking about today, as far as insulin resistance, diabetes, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, autism, Alzheimer's, and everything else in between, all comes back to mercury. And then the presence of other environmental toxins and chemicals and pollutants and all these other things that have been put in us that mercury magnifies. Now, so we've got that part. That part's done. So in the 1970s also, there was a movie that came out and it was called Superman. And in this interesting story of this guy, this guy that came here, that was not from here, but he came here, and he was recharged by, wait for it, the sun.
Yes.
And then when he needed to get updates, and when he needed to get more information, and when he needed to understand his history, he happened to go to the Fortress of Solitude, which just so happened to be full of crystals. And those crystals had all of the information that he ever needed in it, and it stored all of his history. And you go, maybe there's some symbolism in that. And then we go forward a little bit more, and there was a movie called Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
And then in this movie of Indiana Jones, they initially tried to find the cup of Christ. And they had to go through this journey, and they got into the room with the really old dude who looked like Lazarus, and then he looked like Gandalf. And you go, wait a minute, they're weaving. And they had to choose the cup. And one dude said, it's the one with rubies and emeralds on it, and he chose poorly. And Indiana said, no, it's the one that no one would choose, that looks like just it's all beat up and trashy. It's not the pretty ones. It's that one. And he was correct. So we know that crystals are something that is innate, that works with us. And we know that our pineal gland not only needs to be calcified, but it happens to be loaded with little crystals on the inside that are what connect us and resonate with light. Now, there's two sources of light that the pineal gland works with. Your pineal gland controls your circadian rhythm, meaning that those crystals will actually convert serotonin into melatonin and DMT.
Oh, yeah.
You don't need shrooms,
Yeah.
but it also connects us to our light source. Now, when we think crystals, we think quartz, we think amethyst, we think all these beautiful crystals. But did you know that the most powerful crystal, the one that is used to make clean slate, the one that has been used since the beginning of time, when God created this planet and had volcanic eruptions, creating all of the volcanic activity that terraformed this entire planet to make it, happened to produce these crystals and clays that are the ones that cleaned up the environment. And the one that is the most powerful, the one that is used now to make clean slate, happens to be the one that they used to make kitty litter.
Excellent.
Yeah, but it's a different process completely, Clay.
Oh, so you're saying that a bioscience engineering savant figured out how to take nature's most powerful crystal that's been used to make kitty litter, process it, unlock all of the God-created ability in it, load it with more trace minerals, unlock the bioavailable silica to make it deliverable, and then used intention, love, polarization, frequencies, and a whole bunch of other stuff to turn it into something to cause an ascension event at the only time in history when humans were ready for it?
Yes,
Are you
indeed.
saying that?
Well,
I just had to weave this.
She may be a savant, but she's not that clever. She said a moment ago that humans are the highest grade of creature on the surface of the earth. She got that wrong. It's actually Mr. Wow, aka Daniel.
Cute. He's so cute. Oh my gosh.
It's all connectivity. It's all of us. And it's the beautiful point of how we look at this now, of social connectivity. We used to be 6 degrees from Kevin Bacon. Now we're 6 degrees from 6.5 billion people.
Very good.
And it's this tipping point, Sacha, as we've talked about for years now, of we are at this precipice of an ascension event and an extinction event. And we, as many people have said, we are given free will.
Yes.
And we are all here. And it's the point that our collective energy, our collective resonance is at this point where, and this happens throughout history, it happens throughout every aspect of our life, where there's a need, God is already provided. It's our job, and it's the beauty of being resonant and being present. And when I say being present, I don't just mean being in the right place at the right time. It's being in the right condition and the right state of mind and the right state of being at the right time that these things start to happen. So if you start to clean up this tower, this quantum computer,
yes,
the most powerful biological mechanism that has ever been created, as Christina was just hitting on, and you start to, so you have this radio tower, right? We have this amazing quantum biological antenna that the spire, the top of it, happens to sit right in here, that little pineal gland. but your tower has been loaded with other receivers, mercury, aluminum, lead, right? That will attach to your tower just like they do with 5G antennas and everything else. And it is those metals that are receiving all of the negative frequencies from everything else around you. So whether it's EMFs, 5G, all of these things, and I'll let my wife say yes, that is true here in a second. Your body does not naturally resonate with all those signals. There is a law of physics that states already, and physics is not something to be calculated, physics is something to be practiced, and I got to prove this while in a pool in Mexico. The human body and water in general blocks, naturally, innately blocks radio signals and frequencies when it's natural. Dr. Rahm, is this true?
Well, it's true. Your energetic and sound waves and everything for communication, it's blocked in water to a certain extent. It's not, there are ways, I want to say this, like with time travel and with the different things we've worked on as far as different string theories and quantum physics, for water to actually be a conduit to a conductor, I'm not saying it right, to other things that work even, but basically enhance it. But it is able to cancel out different things like EMF, like 5G, different things that are impacting our body. And Clay is right. Our bodies were not made to be able to withstand some of the levels of energy that are being thrown on us that aren't good for the body. And it's been a long time. Like Sacha, you were ahead of the game before me. You kind of woke me up to understanding as a scientist what I could do to really work to improve what was going on. Because to be honest, I thought everyone understood the things that now I get years later, they didn't. You understood, Clay understood. And this isn't a criticism towards humanity. I would say we've had so many toxins, so many heavy metals, and our body has tried to filter that out. But the truth is, we can't do it on our own because there's so much pollution and heavy metals around us. And our brains, I really believe the reason some people can't think straight and they have depression and they have obesity is the simple fact that there's so much in their body that they can't manage, right? They can't hear, they can't feel. They don't understand. They can't connect. They don't remember where they're from or why they were made or why they're here. Mm-hmm. In order to bring that energy and mission back to people, they've got to clean out their body and support their body. And I do feel like the Trinity was a starting point with that. But I have to say, when we added Immune Defense Shield, because that formulation, it's the only one that has a 3-year shelf life for NAD and quercetin that has patents around it. And then adding the peptides and the other things that will really help the body work more effectively has been huge. We've had a lot of people ask us, have you guys lost weight? Yes, we've lost weight, but we've done it naturally by supporting our bodies because the fat cells hang on to the heavy metals. So I want to say that again. Your fat cells are hanging on to memories and to heavy metals that are not good for you. So when you're overweight, I don't blame people. I think it's because they have so many toxins. But you can't make the excuse that it's too hard to get it off of you, because if you just detox and clean the body and support it, the body will do it on its own. That doesn't mean you put junk into your body. That means you regard your body as a temple because your spirit and your soul are in this body. You have to really honor it.
You know, Klinghardt brought to our attention what you must have known for a very long time, that it's the trifecta of glyphosate, aluminum, and fluoride, particularly those three that catalyze in the human body, elicit, I don't know, 4 or 5 different unique chemical responses, which make their way toward the pineal, weaponizing it, waiting for what? For the last quanta, which is 5G, to be able to catalyze that bomb, so to speak. So given that there's a great deal of truth in how he expresses that piece, that every human being has, in that sense, been weaponized through fluoride, glyphosate, and aluminum, to be sure, and a phalanx of others, but just those 3 alone have weaponized the entire human family. How does Root Brands, the spectrum of the Root brand products, deal specifically with that trifecta of evil?
Can I?
Let me answer really quick and then you can finish, because I know you're going to say a different thing than I'm going to say. And I just want to say really quickly that Sacha's 100% right. Just those three things have really weaponized the human body in a negative way, right? This is not a positive weapon. This is something that's really hurt us. And I think people don't want to believe. And here's what I have to tell everyone. It's fine if you don't want to blame someone. It's fine if you don't want to think that could ever happen, but it has, right? You just have to deal with how do you get your body back on the right track? Right. And it's not that easy unless you put the right things in the body and take the things, like I said earlier, out. And all of the products that are made at the Root brands, I formulated, and that's how they were made. Make sure, even with Zero In, Sacha, making sure the brain is focused and working, making sure you can sexually perform in a better way. That was my goal, because you don't want to take the cognitive functioning away from people or the sexual function. And I really mean that. It's like I say it and then people are like, what do you mean by that? We're humans. We're meant to be here to really help humanity, but also to enjoy our lives. And a lot of that happiness has been taken away. It's been stolen from us. But guess what? We understand that. So let's get it back by using different things that can clean our body and support it. And that's why I worked on so many patents. That's why I worked on so many formulations. It wasn't even about the ingredients, everyone. It was about the manufacturing process, because we are putting things in our body that are making it even worse. And I want to go back to one more point that Sacha said. The 5G was the cap on that. It's like weaponizing a nuclear bomb, right? And I don't mean to laugh about that. It really upsets me, because there's so many people that are like, that can't be true. That is true, right? That is a fact. I'm not saying we get rid of innovation, but I'm saying we've got to take care of our bodies and get rid of this crap that's inside. And Sacha's 100% right. And you do have to do things. It doesn't happen naturally where you just get rid of all the junk that for hundreds of years has been placed upon our bodies and our spirits and our souls.
Very good.
Couple, Sacha, isn't it not like the greatest romance language to hear her say that we were right?
Oh, yes. But I've known that all along, you see.
Yeah. So here's the fun part. 19 years ago, I sat down with Dietrich because I lived in Southwest Washington, the Seattle area. Dietrich was in Bellevue, Washington. So we were together. I sat down with him when I first started into this foray of the first iterations of taking clinoptilolite and putting it into a solution. I sat down with him in his office with Ron Kimiai. Ron used to run the pharmacy for him there in their office in Bellevue. So I'm not saying anything that isn't true, because I'm dropping names for facts. But I sat down with Dietrich and we were going over the technology and the science of what this little liquid could be. His quote to me, because I'm an auditory learner, he's like, if you prove this out, this will be the greatest advancement in nutrition since Linus Pauling discovered vitamin C. Well, guess what? We're right. Now, Dietrich's got a little bit of a problem right now, because he's so far down his own path that he forgets our conversation 19 years ago. But we are at this unique precipice, right, of what they've done. We look at building an empire as far as building an infrastructure, but what's been done to control the most powerful mechanism of the empire is loading us since the 1930s, loading us with mercury through adjuvants that have put in vaccines. So just for everyone, and you can talk to my resident bioscience engineer on this, vaccines aren't the problem.
Yeah.
And people are going to go, wait a minute, I hate you for saying this. Vaccines aren't the problem. Adjuvants in vaccines are the problem. If you could create natural vaccines.
That's why what Sacha said is accurate, Clay. He said that basically, if you heard what he said in the beginning, that's what he's saying. It's included as a delivery mechanism. And Clean Heart was right. That whole cycle is in front of us, and we know, we just don't want to believe that can happen to humanity.
Right.
God bless it. I love it when she says it again. Did you hear it, Sacha? She said it again. We are right. So
well, here we are. Salvation is in our midst. You've got a whole raft of new products that have come out, which I have a duty of care to at least flash in front of my constituency. If you don't mind, I want to do that right now. So friends, this is what Crush looks like. You'll remember the incredibly simple, elegant, and pure branding of Root. One of the things I love about your product range. There is nothing fancy on the outside. It's all the magic on the inside, but such elegance and simplicity in the branding. I think it's pure genius, I have to say. Again, clean slate, Alpha Point, as far as I'm concerned. What is this?
Oh, peptides, baby.
There's a 3-step peptide system that was developed after I developed Crush, because I started understanding that we really needed to help with our skin. Our skin is which I've always known, our skin is our largest organ. Everyone worried about viruses coming in through the nose and the eyes. You know, Sacha, my big thing is I was worried about fungus and parasites and not really the virus.
Yeah.
But the truth is all of that comes in through your skin. So one of the paths I've been on for the last 2 years is protecting the skin, which is your largest organ. It's protecting your spirit, protecting your soul, protecting your brain. And I really want people to emphasize, don't use a skincare brand that hurts your body. Whatever you put on your skin is going inside the body. You need the building blocks because you are going to get older. And if you really want your skin to look good as you age, you've got to protect it, provide barriers for things coming in, and then support it so it has a scaffold. Peptides provide the scaffold or the canvas, so whatever you put on it is more bioavailable. And that's why I really, for the last 2 years, this has been a process for me. I had to find sequencing of peptides that would be accepted in 80 countries. And at the same time, governments started blocking peptides. So all these countries started saying, you can't use this peptide, you can't use that peptide.
Why would they do that? Why would they do that? And under what aegis could they possibly do that?
They've used it as the reason for that some peptides could be detrimental, which is true about anything. It's like vitamin C or vitamin D, and that the sourcing. So I had to really keep going back to what will be available for the next 2 to 3 years that I can sequence in a process that will really provide all these countries what they need. And then I had to hit a certain standard. It was a lengthy process. Every time I would go back to the drawing board, we couldn't produce it. And most peptides cost, like for one bottle, you're spending $200 to $300. And I wanted the community to be able to have something that everyone could use with 3 products that were under that. So it was a lot of going back and forth. People think Clayton and I get along about everything. We don't. Because if you really look at my background, I'm looking at the science of humanity. Clayton's looking at that too, but he's also understanding the business of making this work, right? So it was a continuous process. And I have to say, it's the best skincare line I've ever used. I use Reno as the nutrient. I want to go back to this with everyone. If you don't have the building blocks, the nutrients and minerals, the omegas, nothing can go in your skin. Nothing can go in your body. Your skin needs the peptides. If you ask me why governments were cutting, the real answer is I have no idea. It's like when they cut vitamin D and vitamin C during the pandemic. I never understood it. And I don't understand why they've done it to peptides, but I made sure that I was able to produce something that would really help people, not just for a year, but for the rest of their lives, because you have to have these building blocks.
Beautiful. And any other updates or developments that we should be looking out or waiting for on a route upcoming, either this year or next year?
I'm going to send the video about Rahm roast. My oldest son and I, and with Clayton and Ted Baker, we all really jumped in with the coffee. I created a process to clean the beans. We sourced those. We ended up finding out that after we tested it, we sent it to all these third parties. Guys, it has a 91% cup score. You need to understand coffee, and I can't make claims. So everything I say, I'm like very careful. You guys know that we can't do that in the nutraceutical business, but the coffee can be really good for you. We even understand that coffee beans can do what's called cancer cell apoptosis, and that means getting rid of it, right? However, because coffee beans hang on so much to toxins, mycotoxins, and everything in the environment, they are not good for us. Ours are free of mycotoxins, 91% cup score. It doesn't have the plastics, the mycotoxins, the GMOs. It's a step further than anything else I've ever seen because no one else is cleaning the coffee beans and preserving them. So if you think about your body, our goal, and I want to use this as an example to everyone, we got a 91% cup score, checked it for 2 years. The beans aren't going back. The coffee beans are working. So that same process, part of it is in clean slate. So think of what's happening to your body when you're taking Clean Slate. Your job is to make your body get rid of the mycotoxins and the mycoplastics, which is what we did with coffee beans through the process I developed. That's what each human being is doing when they really focus on Clean Slate. Clean Spirits did get approved. The patents are approved now for alcohol, metabolism, and detoxification.
Oh, great.
I wrote those patents around the organs of the body, not trying to encourage people to drink, but to give people something if they have been addicted to help clean out their body, or if they are drinking to try to block things and metabolize it so you don't gain weight, so you don't have problems with your organs. And those patents did get approved this year.
Beautiful. Well done. Magnificent. Clay.
One final thing. I'm going to see if I can milk this out of one of us, because of the three of us here, one of us was invited to work on the Human Genome Project, looking at the microbiome and understanding why we've seen a 70% increase in colon cancer in women between the ages of 20 and 40 in the last year. Now, Sacha, you and I aren't scientists and we're not bioscience engineers, so odds are good we weren't the ones that were invited to do this. But
no, but we're sexy as hell. But carry on.
God bless it. I'm just getting excited looking at you right now. But since this information hasn't been released yet, and we like to give special information to our family since this is family time, Christina, is there some stuff that you can share with your knowledge over what's going on with these things, and how we've probably already solved this, but some insight into people, because we think eating healthy, doing things that are environmentally healthy. And Sacha, I put a link to my interview with Don Huber that I did 4 years ago. And unfortunately, Don left us in May of this year, as I found out, because I wanted to do another interview with him. But he was, since 1974, he's been the top researcher in the world on glyphosate. So I did this interview with him 4 years ago. So taking that, you can take that, and we should share that with everybody so they can see the glyphosate part of the conversation. He's the guy. But as it pertains to glyphosate, it brings in this question. So, Christina, is there stuff that you can share on this aspect?
I have to be careful what I share, but I can say this. We're trying to sequence different genes to find out why diseases are being caused, what's happening. And I don't mean to correct you, Clay, but that's women in their 20s and 30s in the United States. There's a 70% increase. It's a crisis. Your oncologists are dealing with it. Your GI doctors are dealing with it. Why women, right? Why are women having why are 20-year-old women that are vegan having colon cancer? The answer to that is they're finding a link with omega-6, which omega-6 are needed for your brain. But some people have these wounds. We know now that when you have a tumor, it starts as almost a scab or a wound. Or if you have Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, or you have an issue in the brain, right? Multiple sclerosis is another one. We realize now that the grass-fed meat and the grass-fed milk, first of all, you don't need milk after you're 2 years old.
Yep.
You don't need that kind of milk from a cow. But we found out that the cows are eating grass, even if they aren't being fed GMOs. They're eating grass that had it hundreds of years ago. It doesn't leave our stratosphere. So when we used to drink milk or eat meat when we were younger, we weren't exposed to all these things. Now we know that there's things in the meat and in the milk that's causing issues. But we also know that omega-6, which I love, MCT oil, you can't with those oils anymore, because we understand they're activating what's in the body. They're making the sores go bigger, like in the colon, like the tumors they're finding started as a scab, that then the omegas and the different things we're putting in our body, even if you're vegan, you're putting these things in your body without even knowing. So what's the solution? Because I always say you got to have a solution. Again, the solution is to clean your body. We can't get away with not eating at all, right? Most of us. I mean, I'm like Clay. I can get away with just taking the root products and feel great. But most people don't do that. So what you have to do is deal with reality and clean your bodies, which is why Clean Slate is so important. Why Clean Spirit's important if you're going to drink, or if you've had addiction issues in the past. All of this is to support your body so that you're healthier and happier. That information will be coming out about the omega-6, but I think it's important for people to know there's other information I can't discuss, but there are some definitely pathways that are being basically plowed through. And I want to say this, you've got some traditional doctors that are waking up to what's going on and what's happened. And there's no more, I'm dealing with major people that are not closing their eyes. They understand what's happening and they're trying to help humanity too. It's hard. I want to say this last thing, Sacha. Yeah. It's hard when you realize what you've been saying is wrong. Yes. It's hard when you are someone that really cares about people, or you're a doctor or scientist and you realize a new fact. And I want to use me as an example. I wrote a cookbook. I love MCT and coconut oil. I didn't know the latest research. You can eat MCT oil and you can have coconut, but if you fry with it or cook with it, it can cause issues with some people. And I do think that we should all be able to stand up and tell the truth and be honest, even if we didn't have that knowledge in the past. Let's all wake up and let's realize that we have new information that can make us healthier and better as human beings.
So what is the bottom line on that? Clarified butter. Ghee is the best thing to cook with.
Ghee, ghee is the best. Completely. Your ghee butter, your nut milk.
You look like you're from the Punjab there when you were doing that. We're talking about ghee.
No, I'm serious. That's like your best thing you can go to is the ghee butter. People are like, I can't cook with anything anymore. I go, you can cook with ghee. Like that's something that's really good for you to cook with. And then honestly, you have to accept that maybe there's some cheese and some milk and butter and stuff that you can't eat a lot of.
And you know what? You know how to solve all of this? Rotarian.
Rotarian. Well, I would agree with that. So, but there's also a distinction between the milk molecule and the cream molecule, isn't there? Because cream is good for you. Chondroitin sulfate, good, right?
Absolutely. That's a great point, Sacha, because when I talk about it, I didn't say you can't eat coconut, right? And I actually, you're right. Cream and fermented food, right, is more of a probiotic for the body, and it helps the gut. It's like sour cream, right? And people don't know the difference. So it's something we just have to keep talking about and educating people. Probably most of your audience understands it, but I was kind of caught off guard, to be honest, when I had the conversation about colon cancer and the epidemic that it is right now in the United States. I was not expecting omega-6. Like I wasn't expecting that conversation. But I have to tell you, I said to Clayton, when I eat grass-fed meat, and he knows this. Now, Wagyu's different because they feed Wagyu with zeolite.
God bless it. You brought out the secret of the greatest part of Japanese ingenuity.
I was getting sick every time. And then it hit me. I'm on the call with one of the top oncologists in our world. And he said, the meat we're eating, if it's in a place where they're eating grass, it's been exposed. Again, Sacha, this goes back to your point, to GMOs and heavy metals and different things, then the meat has it, right? And we're eating that. So we just have to be really careful about our sources.
Wow, beautiful. Well, guys, we're 20 minutes later than we were intended. This was a 30-minute piece, moving up to the hour. I'm thrilled, and so will the audience be, but I don't want to overburden you. Clay mentioned a moment ago before you joined that you've got a little bit of traveling, and then you're going to be calming it down for the rest of the year, staying put. Have to ask you both, where do you see North America heading in the course of the next calendar year?
Oh, man. You know what? I have hopes for North America. I'm not fear-based. I don't live fear-based. I believe in the human spirit. I have been discouraged a little bit when I've met with His Highnesses and all these people this year, prime ministers, president. I spent the whole day in Kosovo with the president, and they're worried about the United States, right? They're worried about North America because we have more GMOs than anywhere else. We haven't taken care of different things we need to take care of. However, I just want to say this. I know that whoever's in office, that we can make good decisions. You have to be able to trust, or this is how I am. I have to trust something much higher, much better in a different universe than what we're used to understanding that we are in an evolution. I believe we will be able to help our food sources if they will allow scientists like me to really work on these projects. We don't have to get rid of all the food and the seeds and the plants. We can clean them. And that's one of the things I'm jumping into. Sacha, the reason I'm staying in North America is I'm taking over manufacturing because I want to control that process and not license any of it out. And then I want to work with our food sources because I want to be able to help future generations. And I know we can do it. We just have to focus on it. So I think North America will jump back in the game of healthcare because we've kind of been left behind a little bit.
Totally. And Clay and Christina, I've got to tell you, I mean, I'm pegging my flag into North America. The world may be turning its back and fleeing in a sense. We're very shortly going to be making announcements about our Tennessee micronation. And I anticipate spring of next year, we're going to be making a proclamation. And the way I see it is this, and this is the intersect with roots, is we're establishing jurisdiction and claiming the full title, taking the land back to the indigenous patents going back, 1,500 years. End of story, Alpha Omega, reclamation of the living soil and the return of the sons and daughters of God to the living soil, absent the war powers. We're doing this as an act of peace, not as an act of war, but we have a higher jurisdiction and understanding of law than anyone in the Pentagon or Washington, D.C. So we're doing that either which way with a great many souls and establishing that new jurisdiction, which incidentally means no FDA, ultimately no CDC, FDA, none of those bullshit statutory founded agencies will have any regulatory authority over the jurisdictions we're talking about. Then that jurisdiction has to then syndicate in all states in America. And we're setting that blueprint into motion. People like you, Christina, and corporations like yours, Clay and Christina, should never have to, beyond a certain point, pay homage to Moloch, to Satan, and pay any attention to these satanic infractions and statutes and codes which are designed to inhibit and impede your genius in science and not to progress the evolution of humanity. So we now know, do we not, that government in and of itself is the obstacle. These agencies and regulatory authorities, and you, Christina, were one of the big players on the big playground in the pharma industry. You understand that more than most ever will. But do you not believe we've arrived at that incredible time where we now reclaim jurisdiction for the sons and daughters of God? Closing comments, Clay, and then Christina.
So over the next year, we have to find the cause. We have to get back to our...
Yes.
Right? It's funny that everything comes back to your roots. And is it not interesting that there seems to be a cross in the middle of the logo, almost like there was intent in the creation of this entire thing?
Oops.
I have to say in just a closing comment. First of all, thank you, Sacha, for what you're doing. And second of all, yes, I believe we will take back the ability to really cause us to go to a higher elevation. And when I say that, I just want everyone to know we are meant to achieve the highest things possible in the world. We have been basically covered up by all these things that have been put into the earth that were against humanity. And I think now is the time you're going to see changes. So while everyone's worried about next year, I really see it as a year of transformation. I love to hear that you're coming to Tennessee. I think Tennessee is one of the pivotal places. Taking back the farmland and taking back our communities is so important. I mean, I've said to Clayton a million times, I could live in a commune because if it was the right commune, right? And we were really helping people and doing the right thing. And I really, that's where my energy is going to go. I was raised on a farm. I was raised in a farming community. So for me, it's really important that we take back our source, and food is the source. And that's why that will be one of our focuses. And I'm really happy to hear that there seems to be an alignment with that. And I'd love to help in any way.
Beautiful. Well, I've definitely got something I want to talk to you about on that score. That'll be a private call with you and Clay. Guys, love you so much, and thank you for being on Lazarus today.
Love you, brother. I miss you.
Love you too.
40% of Americans are on an antidepressant. You know how we define depression in this country? We define it as an inadequate supply of the neurotransmitter serotonin. If your serotonin levels are low, you are by definition depressed. So you wouldn't think the cure would be to raise serotonin levels, would you? Well, that's not what the establishment does. Instead, we put people who are depressed on an SSRI, serotonin reuptake inhibitor. This means we take the little serotonin you have and ration it out. By definition, this approach never truly ends depression because it never actually raises serotonin levels. This is why many patients remain on antidepressants for 18 years or more and still struggle with depression. 90% of the serotonin in your body is made in your gut. There's a factory right there in your gut. You can significantly improve your serotonin levels in 14 minutes. You may no longer feel depressed because your issue wasn't depression itself, but a lack of naturally produced serotonin. As soon as we address that gene mutation, serotonin levels skyrocket and depression takes a backseat. This is where Zero In comes in. By targeting the root cause of low serotonin. Zero In can help reactivate the production of serotonin, elevate its levels, and provide a long-lasting solution to depression. That's real power. You don't just want to feel good. You want to crush life. You want to create greatness.
Lazarus, a very, very fine segment coming up today, and one that has been eluding and evading us for some time, likely because the man